Hi, I'm Steggy from Olga.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh my goodness, I'm so dark. What is going on, everyone? Hello, hello, hello. Let me fix this. There we go. Get a little bit more juice here. Something like that. All right, that seems to be a bit better. What is going on, everybody? Hopefully everybody's doing well. All right. Hey, we got Silver Wolf. We got Anzies. We got London Matthew. Atomic Hobo, welcome back. Says welcome back. Well, welcome back. Yes, it's good to be back. Storm Phoenix. London Matthews, we said that already. William Brandis is here, as is the self-confessed cynic himself, a YouTube member with his sick-ass green name. At least it's green to me. Looks good. Michael G, Ruin Smith, and of course, the Stream Elements bot. Welcome. Welcome to everybody. Oh, well, yeah, I just flew in like a couple hours ago. My flight got in around 4:30, home by 5:30, and here we are. That's the kind of dedication I respect I give to this group, to this channel. Oh, we got Flame Loud. We got Ian Ryder. We got all the hits. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We just got a new member.
I am strong. Strong. Strong.
There we go. Brian C. leveling up. He is strong. Are you strong? Brian C. is strong. Welcome, Brian C. Very much appreciate it. That's to be completely clear, the YouTube membership is strictly for showing off. Actually, it was a very lovely flight, Storm Phoenix. But thank you, Brian. It is green, and you are strong, and welcome. Welcome to the digs. No rest, must stream, says Joey. Glad you traveled safe and made it home. Yeah, we went all the way across the Caribbean to the shores of old Mexico. We climbed some Mayan ruins. We explored some ancient temples. No lizardmen. No treasure. And I got to be admitted with you, it would have been a lot cooler if there had been. I start to kind of realize, I'm like, oh yeah, this would be, if I had a sword, or I was capable of producing cool magical effects, and there were enemies here, and there were creatures here, and I got to kill them and take their stuff, and that stuff was like millions of dollars, that would be pretty cool. I would be a big fan of that. But alas, instead, they were just tourists. I mean, I suppose I could have killed them and taken their stuff, but that is not to be. No issue with sea legs here. Oh, no. I have actually, if anything, after I spend 3 or 4 days on a ship, I kind of get land sickness. My central equilibrium is so used to the gentle sway of motion that when I'm on land and I'm not moving, it feels to me like everything is sort of drifting back and forth, of course. So it's interesting. NeoCal really appreciates our combat tip videos. Well, great. Thanks, NeoCal. They are very popular videos. They introduced a lot of people to the Knights of Last Call channel. And we used to get together in person and do them. And then, things got crazy and we haven't made one in a while. But certainly something that is very popular, very much wants to be brought back. And, I pay for this studio with the lovely contributions from supporters like you and our Patreon. And I'd like to use it for more things like that. So here's to hoping that, we get back to sort of a more normal thing, sort of normal procedure here this spring. And this will be really good. I did read a bunch of RPG books. Let's see. What did I read? Well, I read through most of the Quest for the Frozen Flame adventure path. That's one. I read through Seventh Sea. I read through Legend of the Five Rings. I brought Forbidden Lands, but I didn't read it. That might have been it. I mostly just read. I had never really read Seventh Sea cover to cover. I wanted to kind of go back and reread certain elements of Legend of the Five Rings that I had never really focused on before because my initial group of characters hadn't really done much with the Shugenja and the invocations, and so I wasn't as familiar with those, and I kind of wanted to brush up on that. And then, and of course, Quest for the Frozen Flame, because that is what we are going to be playing here on the channel here in the next coming weeks. So, hey, pretty cool. Hey, Lug, how's it going, man? London, I wouldn't know, but I assume that the constant rocking of being having a baby is probably close in similarity to being on a cruise ship where all your needs and wants are pampered too. But I'll take it from you. So for anybody who doesn't know this, prior to the pandemic, it used to be a thing that my mom and I do. I'm a big fan of cruises. I've been trying to get her to go on cruises for years, but she was afraid because she had seen Titanic and she was afraid the ship was going to sink. So finally, about 6 or 7 years ago, I finally got her to go onto a cruise, and it kind of became an annual tradition for us around Mother's Day. And it was sort of a combination Mother's Day gift, birthday gift. And I could just, I buy the tickets, I buy the cruise ship, I buy the excursions, I buy the stuff, and we go out and we just have a fun time, and we hang out, and we get good meals, and we go and see the shows, and we see the sights, and we do our own things too, which is what makes a cruise ship so nice. I'll go over to the front of the ship to the solarium with an RPG book and a drink in my hand. She might go play in a sit and go Texas Hold'em tournament. So it's a lot of fun for both of us, and we really enjoyed it. But of course, we didn't get to do it in 2020 or 2021 due to the pandemic, and we didn't get to do it in 2019 because your boy was broke because he had tried to start his own business and it wasn't doing so well. Yikes. I had hopes that it would recover, and then, of course, the pandemic killed that. But again, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Since I had bought all this crazy amount of production equipment, film equipment, video equipment, audio equipment for my business, and I was renting a studio and had a lease that I had to that couldn't get out of. I had this whole space anyways, and since we had this whole space anyways, we started playing RPGs there, and that became Knights of Last Call. So, hey, it worked out, and that's why we're here. Luke says, I'm happy 4th level spells are so close. Higher level spells have less spells. Videos are going to be shorter and you can cover more ground faster. Well, you're in luck, Luke, because as the master himself, request a review of Quest for the Frozen Flame. Who needs spells anyways? Sir, we're about to do the Quest for the Frozen Flame. How can I possibly review it that's like spoiler alert. I mean, we could talk a little bit about it, I guess, because in case you didn't know this, there is a principle in our Patreon community, something that I'm not going to shill too heavily, but I'll shill it once, which is you should check it out. It's great. It's awesome. And everybody, it is a very unique internet-based RPG community. Let me put it that way. And we have a lot of great fun times there. And we get into some heated arguments, and we, sometimes people have some of their ideas shook up. I go in there with my ideas and people beat me down and they say, hey, you're wrong. And it's not about attacking me. It's about, making me think about why do I feel a certain way and how do we recover from that? So long story short, we have a principle. I have a principle. It's called the principle of Vin. And for those of you who don't know, self-confessed cynic in our Patreon Discord is Vin. And Vin, who hails from Australia, my principle of Vin is basically this. Vin will say something. I will say that he is an idiot or that he's wrong or that what he's describing isn't really that great of an idea. And then in some period of time later, we will do that thing and it will be a tremendous hit. So generally speaking, now this hasn't changed my behavior. I still fundamentally disagree with everything that he says. It just also hasn't been the case that he's been wrong. So as he said at the beginning of this video, this chat, if you came in late, he said, I don't even know what's left for Arcane if the other traditions are done. And he basically is correct. So let me shoot over here to the tier list really quick, because we only have a couple of things that we need to handle today. Oh, it was my Spotify. Hey, there's our spells. Okay, so this is our Arcane level 3. And let's let's talk a little bit about this because basically a couple things. Number one, the Arcane level 3 only has one unique spell, okay, and that is Shrink Item. It's the only unique Arcane spell. That being said, there are these 6 spells over here on the right: Pillar of Water, Shifting Sand, Unseasonable Squall, Wall of Radiance, Wall of Water, and Wall of Wind, which were primal spells that we somehow missed. So we do need to give those a grade. So it's not just the one spell; it's actually going to be 7 spells. But I thought we could talk a little bit about my impression of Arcane level 3 as well. Yes, Vin is always doubted, but never wrong. It's like like you ever heard trust but verify? It's like don't trust, begrudgingly accept. It's like Vin is guilty until proven innocent. That is my general thoughts on Vin. Michael said, I just dropped in to say hi. I'm a big fan of you and the other Knights of the Last Call, Derek. My friend's game has been very off and on because of schedule, so I've been watching you guys play to fill that void. Well, welcome, Michael. As you may have just heard or guessed, we're in the process of starting up a new AP from the beginning. I don't want to spoil anything in case you are going through the show, but the other show did come to an end, and we'll leave it at that. That being said, we are starting a new show. It's going to be Pathfinder 2. It's going to be Quest for the Frozen Flame. One of the I know technically the Alkenstar one is just now coming out, but it's basically the newest AP. And we're also looking, thanks to the support of our Patreon and the financial support that they give us, as well as people and folks like you who might be giving us tips or donations through Super Chats or through our Stream Elements tip page, which you can find a link below in the doobly-doo to send us a tip, which is always appreciated. But we're hoping that we can get a second game going. Maybe something like Dungeon World or Legend of the Five Rings, just something else. Now, again, ordinarily, this would be a complete, death sentence for us. Looks like the recent stream highlight of a rant did well. Weird. Who would have thought? Okay. Listen, the most recent video, the last video I published while I was on a cruise. And what I did is, I was trying to juggle a million things, get things done for work, get things done with some of my woodworking hobby. And we went and I went back to one of my old videos where I talked about Dungeon World, and I made this, I took a 40-minute cut from the live stream and I posted it. That is not quite a highlight there, self-confessed cynic. That's a whole ass thing. And I don't know if that was a rant. That was me simply explaining the principles of Dungeon Craft. Let me see. If you watched the video, okay? If you watched the 12 principles video.
I am strong.
Oh.
Strong. Strong.
Okay. Bob has just become an adventurer, proving once and for all that he is strong. 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 Bob is strong, so we cannot chide him. Bob, thank you very much for the support, Bob. Ironically, Bob is a squire in our server, but that doesn't mean you should be. Let me think here. If you saw the last video, was the 12 principles video a rant? All right. Just let me know if you watched the video. It came out, I think, just a couple days ago. Let me know if you thought it was a rant. I didn't think it was a rant, but Vin says it was a rant, so who knows? I'll let that run for a couple moments. So yeah, and William Brandis is saying it's not a rant as well. Welcome, William Brandis. Everybody congratulate Mr. William Brandis. He is the proud owner of a new home, a much deserved increase and upgrade. It's going to be great for his family, but quite selfishly, it's going to be great for us too, since that is what that's where we play our Friday night home game, our sort of private game, and it'll be sweet. I'm looking forward to it, and I get to go over there tomorrow, and I get to check out his new digs. There's something about a new home that is unfilled with the detritus of living, with furniture and all the stuff that you need in order to make it comfortable. And it's just this sort of blank canvas, and it's just full of possibilities. It's very, very nice. I really appreciate it. Let's see. All right, here we come. And ending the poll. What are our results here? No is the answer. Self-confessed cynic with another super chat. Look, impassioned speech doesn't have quite the same ring to it. I know, and I feel like it's become a brand thing now, that people just expect me to rant. And even if I'm not ranting, it's called a rant. That's my shtick now, I guess, apparently. Weasel Lord, are you in the Cincy or Columbus area? We are in the Cleveland area. So of the 3 C's, we are in the northern one. We're in the Cleveland area. So Vin is wrong until. That is correct. Brian, the New Adventurer. I actually bought that book immediately on your list. Not sure if I need the book, since you basically cover those points pretty well, but I like more books on the shelf. Great. And that's the other thing too. That I like Dungeon World, and I like Powered by the Apocalypse games, but in no way, shape, or form was I trying to endorse a Dungeon World in that book. I was actually just trying to endorse the principles that they talk about as a way to frame and guide your GMing in Dungeon World. I think that is something that is lacking in D&D games. They give you this rule set, but they don't necessarily tell you what to do with it other than have fun. And that's not exactly a great guideline. That would be like if you ask somebody, hey, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? And they say, somewhere good. You're like, okay, I mean, yeah, we're going to go somewhere good. I would hope we would go somewhere good. And so I want to say this. I like games that know what they're about. I like games that, maybe in my old age, I like games that are trying to, accomplish a mission, that they have a goal, they have an agenda, and they create and maintain game elements that help them fulfill that agenda. And that is very, very important to me. So yeah. Kind of getting off on there. Yes, we are called Rants of Last Call. Knights of Last Rant. Ooh, Knights of Last Rant. That's nice. Yeah, Weasel Lord. I love Indy. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite city. Certainly, it's my favorite city in the Midwest. Much better than Cleveland, Columbus, or Cincinnati, Chicago, Milwaukee. Is there anything else in Illinois or Indiana? No. It's definitely the best metropolitan area in the Midwest. And I love it. It's a very walkable city. It's a very livable city. I understand it has its problem areas, but I've gone there for a lot of Magic the Gathering tournaments. I've gone there for 10 plus years, 20, 15 plus years in a row for Gen Con. And boy, I love it. Love it. Just a great, great city. Detroit. Yeah. Actually, my second favorite city in the Midwest would probably be maybe Columbus. I think Columbus is very similar to Indy. It's kind of got a big city feel, but it's also got a small town vibe. I don't know. It's weird. Very nice. That's very cool. We used to go to Gen Con, period, but the COVID has kind of kept us away for the last year or so, and now this year we have badges, but we don't know if we're going to be able to go because we can't get a room. Question: when your bard uses Inspire Courage, which add +1 to damage rolls, how do you add it to magic missiles? My understanding would be it does not. I don't think a magic missile roll counts as a damage roll. Let's take a look what specifically the verbiage on Inspire Courage is. All right, here we go. Bloop. So here is Inspire Courage. You can see that it gets a +1 status bonus to attack rolls, damage rolls, and saves against fear. And if we look up damage rolls, actually, it's easier if we do it here, isn't it? Yeah, see, we only have basically melee damage rolls or range damage rolls. So Magic Missile doesn't actually count as a damage roll. So it would not apply, unfortunately. But if you did want it to apply, I imagine it would apply the same way that Dangerous Sorcery does, which is to say you would only apply it once to the entire casting of the spell. Lug, but the difference is, though, we are talking about, like, Dangerous Sorcery very clearly states that it applies to spell damage spells. Is Magic Missile a damage roll? If so, that is news to me. I would not have thought it was, which is pretty cool. Yeah, see, I actually, I know a developer said this. I kind of question that, actually. So, just saying, I kind of question that. I mean, I'm sure we could discuss it. Clearly, with Dangerous Sorcery, we've discussed this. Where if I did Magic Missile, Magic Missile, Magic Missile, then it seems that it would be you'd get plus the Dangerous Sorcery, plus the Dangerous Sorcery, plus the Dangerous Sorcery. But if you threw all three missiles at one target, you'd only get the Dangerous Sorcery once, because otherwise that would be probably insanely broken. But do I consider Magic Missile to be a dangerous roll? No, because the game mechanic doesn't seem to include a spell damage roll. But I don't know. If a developer said so, who am I to argue with that? So you're saying this was addressed in the playtest and does not. Uh-oh. Controversy. So my take on it is that it is not a damage roll in the context of the game, because the game defines damage rolls as the following. So, But, you know, there's people debating it all over the internet, apparently. So what counts as a damage roll? Blah, da, 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 da. So I'm sure we could probably get into that. Let's take a look. So is Dungeon World the first non-Pathfinder 2 game? Maybe. Yeah, I think it would either be that. Part of the reason for that is because I know that some of my... I don't know. Bob, the tick bar is working at the bottom, but the tip bar, because it is part of Stream Elements, only can track tips. It cannot trap super chats. And so far, the only person who has decided to give us a cash is Mr. Self-Confessed Cynic as super chats. So that is why it is not being tracked on the tip bar. So not to say that we don't appreciate super chats. I'm just saying the Stream Elements does not have a convenient way of displaying and tracking them in the same way. It's a good thing we only have a couple spells today, but also too, you know, I did get off a cruise ship this morning and was drinking last night pretty heavily and flew home today and was in the airport and da-da-da-da-da-da. Not trying to go late, but for you all, I will. I mean, if you guys keep the conversation interesting or you bribe me with tips and super chats, I will happily stay on and answer all your questions. So let's see. Would Dungeon World be the first non-PF2 game? It is a strong contender, but I also really like Legend of the Five Rings. I think it really comes down to who are the players that I have available. And there's a couple of knights that I would like for them to be a part of some of these alternative games, along with some fresh faces. If they're interested or willing and able to. We're a little bit more formal now. We're a company now. We're KOLC LLC. And so, you know, there's a little bit more into it. You get paid and you get a contract and, you know, it's kind of a whole thing. And not like we're not going to haul you out in the street and shoot you if you violate your contract. But, you know, it's a real business and we're trying to play it legitimately. And you all are generously providing money for us. So it's important to me that I spend it to reward the people who make this channel possible, like my players. So yeah. Have you Monster of the Week, Weasel Lord? Do I have Monster of the Week? Yes, I do have Monster of the Week, Weasel Lord. I actually have first edition Monster of the Week, and I have second edition Monster of the Week. Magic Missile damage roll. Paizo's Razor equals no. Rule of Cool equals yes. I mean, Magic Missile is already S tier. I don't think we need to make it, you know, even better than it already is. So, as I said before, if you have a question, go ahead and put it into the chat with uppercase QUESTION. So I can hopefully try to find it, or super chat or tip it, so that I definitely find it. I'll try to get to those as soon as I can. Special thanks to our adventurers who are present here today, and they're definitely doing some hard work, and appreciate every one of you, since that is a great thing to be able to do. Michael, if you're interested in giving us a tip, you can type !tip. The bot will give you a link to our Stream Elements page, or you could take a look in the description below this video, and there'll be a link as well. Or you could use the YouTube Super Chat option, but we do prefer the Stream Elements tip if it is available to you, just because we get a couple percentage points more. So if I have to choose, I'll choose that one. But if anybody wants to donate anything, we're always extremely happy about that. How many adventurers do we have now? I think with our last two joining here, with Mr. Bob himself joining up, which is quite the thing, and of course Mr. Brian, I think that brings us to maybe 5 or 6. Could be. Let's take a look. I don't know if the information will be updated yet. No, it's not updated yet. I can't check during the live stream, but I think it's at least 5 or 6. I think we get another emoji. If you're interested in becoming an adventurer, you get custom emojis that only you can use, and you get a loyalty badge, which will go up in colors the longer you stay a adventurer of the Knights of Last Call. Ooh, yes, the mammoth emoji is going to be clutch during our quest for the Frozen Flame. Well, let's get these spells out of the way, shall we, folks? We don't have a whole lot here to deal with today, and why not just talk about it? Broveleth, yes. In fact, Broveleth, we talk about it. You know, the rating ultimately reflects what we as a group feel, and a lot of times I'll go to a poll just to make sure we're all aligned, Broveleth, and we're all sort of calibrated the same. But if you take a look here, these are the current ratings. Now, we've already done the other 3 traditions for level 3. So we've already done Divine, we did Occult, we did Primal. And that means that most of these spells have already received ratings. Now, sometimes we will shift these around depending on the tradition. But like if you look at this set right now, Warding Aggression. This is a Divine and Arcane spell, and it's one that we rated as a B. There was a lot of actually going back and forth on this one. We rated this one as a B. Oh, and it's Primal, I'm sorry. We rated this spell as a B, but you'll note that we put a little side kind of note there which says for melee only. And that's simply because this spell is really only going to be useful if you're, say, a magus or a war priest, because the nature of the spell is one of somebody who's really getting into melee and sort of mixing it up. And if we look, for example, here is our primal list from our last time. And you can see that Envenom Companion has this sort of green box around it. It's an A tier spell, but it really only works if you have a companion. If you're a druid or a primal caster and you don't have a animal companion or a summoner, I should say an eidolon, then it doesn't really do anything. So we definitely do talk about that when we think it makes a difference. And we try to at least discuss it, but ultimately it's kind of wonky for us to sort of do it that way. Although I do think that we recently gave a spell double ratings. Let me see. Didn't we do that? I don't remember which spell it was. I know. Last time we gave our first S tier scroll, which was really great. I don't remember which one we gave double rating to, but it's there somewhere. All right. Yeah, maybe it was insect form. Yeah, that's actually probably what it was. Oh, okay, great. Insect form. Sweet. Exactly. And so we had a bunch of firsts actually with that, which was really interesting. So good stuff. See, look at the adventurers holding it down. All right, well, let's start then with our one and only unique arcane item. But let's start with, well, actually, you know what? Before we start with shrink item, let's take a look at what arcane gets. For starters, damn, right? Like, this is how many spells the Divine level 3 list has. That's it. Look at that. This is how many the Primal has. This is how many the Occult has. That seems like a ton. And then look how many the Arcane has. And we have 7
Mike
more.
T tipped $5. Thank you for being entertaining.
Thank you for the tip, Mike T. Appreciate it. I'm glad you find us entertaining. You people either find us entertaining, annoying, or just like the absolute worst. So I'm glad that you are with the entertaining bit. But this is an absolutely massive spell list. And you know, I don't know what to tell you. Like, again, forget the power ratings of the spells, okay? And you shouldn't, by the way. But forget the power ratings of the spells. Just look at the number of spells that you have available to you as a divine caster versus an arcane caster. This is just level 3. This is easily more than double. And not to mention, by the way, if you take a look at some of these other spell lists, okay? The only S tier spell that we lose out on, okay, is heroism. That's it. Now, I will admit that is a big deal. Heroism is a fantastic buff. It's got a long duration. It scales very nicely and really can be a very powerful effect, especially for your your melee focused, or I should say your martial focused character classes. So that's not nothing that they don't get heroism. But they get pretty much every other A tier spell from all the other lists, with the exception of Circle of Protection. That's it. That's the only spell that they don't get. It's just, well, heal is technically level 1, but yes, technically heal is S tier because it's good at every level as it scales up. So yes, of course. Ian Ryder, well done. That spell list definitely is mammoth. So, you know, with the exception of a really great AoE party AC buff, Circle of Protection, and of course heroism, you get everything. Look at how many well, for starters, you get obviously slow S+, but you get your fear, you get your fireball, you get all these incredible A tier spells, a ton of B tier spells, an incredible amount of C tier spells, very few D, and almost no Fs. This might be the best spell list that we've seen yet. And I don't think that should come as any surprise to anybody. I mean, level 3, when you get to level 5 as a caster, especially if you're casting Arcane, it turns out, I feel like, for me personally, I always feel like, okay, now we can take things seriously. Now I'm a real caster. Now I have some real, ammunition in my camp, whether it's, something like Slow or Fireball or Lightning Bolt or any of these other numerous, very, very powerful spells. And so I agree completely there, Vin, that level 5 is an important inflection point for sure. Total Entropy says, I think as we go up the levels, the number of Fs is going to drop off. That'll be interesting. We'll see. We'll definitely see. It has so far, which one would hope that is a good thing. But that is interesting. So yeah, overall, is this the best? We've reviewed 12 spell levels, right? 4 traditions each, level 1, level 2, level 3, and as a sort of collective whole, this might be the absolute strongest. You have a little bit of everything here. You've got haste and slow. You've got fireball and lightning bolt. You've got all of these crazy debuffs, blindness, paralyze, agonizing despair. You've got great divinations in locate and clairaudience. You have just a ton of area control and denial spells like gravity well and stinking cloud and gasping marsh. You have this really cool new spell, which I just found out about last time we did the shift, of Blazing Dive. You get Blazing Dive and Time Jump. So Time Jump was kind of like the awesome reposition movement spell from the Occult, and Blazing Dive was the one from Primal. Guess what? Arcane gets them both. And so, yeah, it's crazy. It's nuts. And I would be remiss without saying, as we talk further about, these are things that I think we as a community, we need to demand more from Paizo, but we also need to demand more from ourselves. We accept that slow is broken. Full stop. It's just too powerful. And 3 of the traditions get it. And the one tradition that is already the weakest does not get it. My God, what are we doing? And so it's just crazy. So it's an incredible spell. AK says, man, I love Time Jump. I think one of my most used spells. Yeah, it's a really fun spell, really cool. I don't know that you'd use it a ton when you get to level 5 because, spell slots are kind of at a premium. But once you're at my cleric in our home game is now level 11. And, that means I'm getting 6 slots or 6 charges in my staff. I've got a bevy of wands. I have a bevy of once a day items like Gloves of Healing, Mask of Mercy, etc., etc. I have my Halfling Luck abilities. I have all my heals. I get my 5 bonus heals. I get all my spell slots. And so at this level, I'm like, it's hard for me to even use up all of my spell slots. So if I was in the same situation and I was a sorcerer or a bard or a wizard and I was level, 9 or 11 and I have all these spell slots, absolutely, I'm going to have at least a couple time jumps because that kind of power to reposition, ignore triggering other creatures' reactions is just way too powerful. And it's it's awesome. We can't deny the fact that that's just such a cool, fun effect. It feels magical and it feels dramatic and epic. And I mean, I think that's what a lot of us want. I know that D&D games and Pathfinder games sometimes end up being jokey and silly and dumb anyways, but I feel like you don't have to try for that. You don't have to aim for that, because even if you aim for it to be super epic and serious, it tends to lean towards the absurd and the kind of slapstick comedy. But you don't have to, if you try to make it absurd, it's just going to go off the rails, and I think your campaign's going to sputter out. So anyways, self-confessed cynic giving Bob some advice here, recommending he avoiding the S tier spells. Interesting. Jason B coming in.
Jason B tipped $10. Slow is in the game in case that traitor's math messes up and the characters need to win real quick. Don't want the AP to end. Got to level up, get to the boss, and beat the game.
That's true. That is true. Slow is so absurd. Slow is just absurd to me. I mean, imagine if the other thing about slow is, like, imagine being like a level 13 party and you're fighting, or even like a level 11 party, okay? And you're fighting a boss who is like 2 levels higher than you, and they start the fight off with a multi-target slow spell, and this is from a creature that's 2 levels higher than you. So, you know, you're probably going to need some characters are going to need 13s, 15s, or even maybe 16s to save. And if they fail, they're slowed 1 for a minute. And if they critically fail, which some characters are going to have a 20 to 25% chance of critically failing, they're going to be slowed 2 for a minute. And you can't dispel that effect because the effect is from a higher level creature. So unless you have a max level dispel and you crit, like, I don't see how you could possibly get it. So that's just insane. Like, we're all talking about, oh, slow needs in cap. Okay, fair enough, you know, from the PC's perspective. What about using it against the PCs? I'm not even going to lie. Okay? All right? If we go to the tape, okay? If we go to the tape, again, spoiler alert for Rise of the Rune Lords, Knights of Last Call. So I'm trying to give you that big spoiler warning. Spoiler. Okay. And I'll wave my hands when the spoiler is done if you want to mute it. Borrow Breakbones, the sort of giant shadow knight, sort of wizard warrior, magus type, but, you know, built as an NPC, not as a PC, because I hate doing that. He had 6th level spells. He was going to start off the fight with a 6 target, or 5 target, I should say, against the 4 characters plus Lucky slow spell. And I'm imagining a scenario where, like, from round 1, at least 2 of the characters are slowed 1 or slowed 2 for the whole fight. I mean, there you go. Cool. Let's have fun in this epic game of Pathfinder where there's all these boss monsters and the party only has 1 action per PC. Like, it's just so insane. How, you know, now granted, why was I doing that? Well, you know, I was kind of being a dick, but that's completely raw. Like, that wasn't, you want to talk about the Wheel of Pain, that would have been painful. The party would have been begging for a meteor to land or a nuclear strike to land from orbit instead of everybody getting slowed 1, slowed 2 for a minute. Anyways. Yeah, mass slowing your party is a certified panic moment. Yeah, you can't even run away now because you can only stride once a minute or once a round. There's a lot of ways. 1d4 turns, additional save at the end of each of your turns. I don't know. Yeah, the Wheel of Pain 2.0. You spend Wheel of Pain 2.0. If somebody spends $50, everybody has to make a will save versus slow. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Adams, it just might be that slow is, you know, sounds like a great situation for Dispel Magic. It sucks that counteracting sucks. It does. But Ryan, it's like, how do you know that they're going to, you know what I mean? By the way, am I wrong about that? I might be thinking of Globe of Invulnerability. Because Globe of Invulnerability, yeah, hey, by the way, Ryan, sorry. Guess what? Spell immunity doesn't make you immune. Guess what? You ward a creature. Choose a spell. The spell attempts to counteract the spell whenever you would be the target. Guess what? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's so horrible. That's right. Spell immunity doesn't make you immune. Don't believe the hype. By the way, preview alert, this spell is getting an F. Because it literally does not make you immune. It literally is completely opposite of what it does. This is like the definition of an F spell. Spell immunity. And you're like, okay, they cast that spell on you. And you're like, haha, I'm immune. Actually, you're not. You need to roll a critical hit, a nat 20. Otherwise, it's just totally going to affect you. Oh, boy. Yeah, AK, that could obviously be a way to do it. I mean, obviously being slowed, for a round or two isn't as bad as being paralyzed for a round or two. And, I guess that's the idea. Right, total entropy. There is no AoE dispel magic, so that is very true. Qualified immunity, my favorite. Very good. I think to answer kind of as we continue to talk about slow, the problem with slow is it's devastating against single targets and it's devastating against multi-targets. So like when you fight, assuming we're level 13 and we have access to level 6 slow, if I throw a fight at you, a severe fight, and it is made up of 6 level -2 monsters, the idea here is, hey, they outnumber the party. Sure, individually they might be weaker, but they have 50% more actions than the party. The party has 12 actions. These 6 creatures have 18. And that action economy is going to be a big difference. They're going to be able to move around and, flank and aid and all this other stuff that, the party won't be able to do. So 18 to 6. So slow 2, as it might be called, or slow 6, gets rid of that because suddenly the 6 creatures, more than likely, they're lower level than you. They're going to fail. They suddenly are down to 12 actions. And that fight almost becomes a joke at that point. It really does. I'd also like to point out something here that, that I think is well known. Okay. But I'm going to put it in the chat anyways. Which is, the math is tight, right? The math is tight in Pathfinder 2. And I feel like if you look at a lot of these classes, they kind of don't work when you only get 2 actions around. Like there's a natural sort of ebb and flow to even the monsters, even the way the monsters are designed. Self-confessed Scenic with another. Trolling aside, spell immunity might be S+ at higher levels. Remember, counteract rules versus lower spells, plus RP encounters, plus more enemy casters. We could get into a very lengthy debate about that. I think this spell is, as written, is horrible. So that's just me. I like everything about it except for the part about what it does. I mean, you get into this weird sort of situation, right? Where, because it's like, okay, correct. Counteract rules, basically, even if you fail the counteract check, it will dispel it if it is lower level. So you're like, okay, so slow, even an AoE slow, is 6. So if I choose to take a spell immunity at 7, that'll make me immune to all their slows. But then it's like, but then what if they cast their slow at 7th or 8th? I don't know. It's just a weird sort of game. It's I don't like it. It should just make you immune. My personal opinion. And it's so. But we'll get into that as we get into the level 4, Vin. But we'll. But yeah, so it's like, a lot of the monsters are designed, a lot of the PCs are designed to kind of have this 3 actions. It would make sense. And so like slowing them is even worse than just taking away one of their, actions. Like as written, it's like, oh, I can pull out a scroll and then I can cast the spell. And you're like, okay, well, and then it's like, not only did I use my actions up, but it was very efficient. I used all 3 actions, and they were all in the thing that I was trying to do. If a character slowed 1, you're like, okay, I'm going to pull out the scroll this turn, but then I have this 1 action left, but I can't like carry that over to the next round, and I didn't really want to do anything else with it. So I guess, I don't know, I guess I move, or I don't know, I raise a shield, which is not really what I want to do. And then it's like, okay, now next turn, I can cast the spell, but it really kind of took 4 actions to kind of do what you wanted to do, which was pull out a scroll and cast a spell. It's not that it takes 3 now. Not only are you down an action, because in 2 turns, you should have taken 6, but you only took 4 actions, but you didn't even really use 4 actions. You kind of used 3. And so it's really, really problematic, to say the least, I think. It's very, it's very powerful. I mean, that's why it's S+ tier, but I think it is ultimately kind of problematic. Joey is off to the Northern Reaches, and if you're wondering what the Northern Reaches are, as part of our Knights of Last Call Patreon community, we have set up a huge ongoing Pathfinder 2 mega game. We have over 50 players, coming up on probably 15 to 16 game masters who are basically running games, not quite 24/7, but I think this week alone, I think we're scheduled to have 8 or 9 Pathfinder 2 games running. And the coolest part about it is it's all in a persistent shared world. So while I would encourage you to join our Discord and join our Patreon because you want to chat about games and you're passionate about gaming, I would be remiss to not note that there is this really cool benefit to joining the Patreon, and it is part of our Knight tier or higher package. That's our $5 a month package. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a big success. So, good luck, Joey. Joey is, I assume he's running. He's been running a lot of games. So good for him. So thanks, Joey. I don't see anything self-confessed cynic that says you can't have multiple spell immunities running. So that's fine. BBEG just uses spell immunity versus slow. There's the new meta. Lance Quagmire broke it. Yeah, just every BBEG just randomly has the ability to cast slow. I love it.
Atomic Hobo took $20. Got to jump early for NR2. Heading to the Bloodlands and will probably tick that orc clock. Welcome home and thanks for all the PF2 advice.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Atomic Hobo. Enjoy your Pathfinder 2 game. That's really exciting that you're going back so soon. That's great. Atomic Hobo, long time. Actually, Atomic Hobo, believe it or not, is patron number 1. He's actually the very first patron that we had. So, and he just rolled up a new character, a cleric, in the Northern Reaches, and sounds like he's going back to it. So, good luck to you, sir. Thank you very much. He knew I was playing a cleric, so he reached out to me for some advice, and I was happy to share with him. But yeah, so anyways. Spell immunity, we'll get to it when we get there. Thanks a lot, Mr. Hobo. All right. Shrink item is where we're actually at. Let's rate it, shall we? All right. This casts 10 minutes. Cast for 10 minutes. It is okay. This passes. This is a huge deal, people. This is a huge deal, people. This passes the Gnomish Flickmace test with flying colors. Every spell we have seen up until this point in the game has been like this cool thing, like, oh, put it in your mouth and shove it. And it's got this limit of like 1 bulk. So for the first time ever here, for 1 day, targeting a non-magical item up to 20 cubic feet in volume, which is pretty reasonable. I mean, that's like, roughly the man size, and up to 80 bulk. That's a lot of bulk. You shrink it to the size of the coin. It reduces it to negligible bulk. If you can dismiss the spell, and if it ends, you toss the spell onto a solid surface. It cannot be used to attack or cause damage in the process of returning to normal size. Of course, it couldn't. That sounds cool and fun, and that would probably lead to sort of crazy broken thing, and we did not want to do that. If there isn't room for the object to expand when the spell ends, the spell's duration continues until the object is in a location large enough to accommodate its normal size. So, if you place a rock and then you shrink it down and you put it inside something, the spell will last forever. So that's kind of cool. If you take like a wagon, or a cart and you shrink it down and then you put it inside of a pouch, then I don't think it would ever end. I don't think. Per the description of the spell. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think this spell's pretty cool. I think this spell's pretty cool. Obviously, the spell is not like crazy good, but it's it's interesting, right? I mean, it definitely does what it says on the tin, C. I think C is appropriate. We're going to put it in C. Jason says B. Jason, I think the number of opportunities for this spell to be particularly powerful is kind of crazy. Oh, but we got 2 people who said B. Brolveth said B as well. You could use it to hide the body really well. That is true. Cannot use it on magic bullet. If you shrink a boulder and put it in a gun as a bullet. No, but there's this weird text in here that says it cannot be used to attack or cause damage in the process of it returning to normal size. So that to me says you can't like throw it and have it expand and like hit somebody. Like you want to Ant-Man this, right? But I mean, you could still do something really fun with it. Interesting. Wand or scroll, maybe not worth a slot. Okay, I'm going to buy that. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it over to scroll case, but I am going to upgrade it to a B tier scroll. So that is what I'm going to do. Yeah, exactly, Ruin Smith. Very good. Yeah, okay, good. We're all in alignment. So I like the B ranking. I think what this does is powerful, but this is not an effect that you're going to want to have on your person ready to go at every time, right? And obviously there's a situation where, I mean, the duration is a day. I mean, I'm trying to think of something really crazy, but like if for some odd reason you needed to smuggle in like 5 ballista into the city, you could cast the spell 5 times, shrink them down into ballistas, secret them in people's, pouches and purses and armpits and sneak into the city and then undispel them. So, I mean, it definitely is a really fun spell. Steven is of course correct. The object cannot be used to attack or cause damage during the process of it returning to normal size. Yes. And I will say this, what you just said there is very true of Pathfinder 2. And I'm not saying that as a critique of Pathfinder 2. I'm simply stating that as a fact. In Pathfinder 2, game balance is more important to them than what is cool or what feels like it would really happen, because the number one thing that they did not want to have happen with this edition is for it to be broken by, nerds and car op min-maxers like us, like Pathfinder 1 was. And they deliberately tried to make sure that couldn't happen, because they were getting a lot of feedback from people for many, many years that, you'd have a group of regular players and one person would show up, or you'd have a Pathfinder Society game and one person would show up with, this super powerful character. And they really want to just avoid that as much as possible. Correct. I mean, the duration is a day, but put it inside something, in my opinion, I think it lasts functionally forever. So I actually think that's actually really sweet. Jason says that was where the fun was in PF1. Yeah. So again, we could talk for a long time about what that means and why that type of player profile is something that I think Paizo doesn't necessarily understand. And it's definitely interesting. I played with players who played 3rd edition and PF1 who very much enjoyed that edition because they could become extremely powerful and broken. These are the same people who get every achievement in a video game. They're the people who level their characters to 99 in a Final Fantasy game. And then when they go fight, Sephiroth or Ultima Sia or whoever, they almost basically, one-shotter. There is a type of player that plays these games, and this is not a critique. It's just a fact. They play it as a form of power fantasy. They want to be strong, right? They want to be.
I am strong.
So that is what is most important to them. How do I feel strong? We all play RPGs for a certain extent because, the real life kind of sucks, right? fantasy role-playing games as a way for us to sort of live out this sort of power fantasy of being extremely strong. And thanks, Bob. I always level to 99 and get break damage limit for Final Fantasy. See, this is the type of player I'm talking about. Okay, that is a type of player. Pathfinder 2 is not that game. Pathfinder 2 wants it so that no matter how hard you try, no matter what silly, dumb shenanigans you come up with, guess what? That boss is always going to be tough. That there is no way for you to combine X and Y and Z, because they want the challenge of the game to be ever present. They don't want you to be able to grind and get so power and make these crazy builds so that the game becomes trivially challenging. They want the game to be just as hard at level 15 as it was at level 5, as it was at level 10. And so, yeah, very different. It's a very different game design objective. And I talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the stream about what is, when I was talking about Dungeon World, what is a game trying to do? I think someone on our Discord, Galarian in Depth, has said that, he feels like Pathfinder 2 kind of sells you a bill of goods, and maybe 5th edition as well, by sort of selling it as this game that can do everything, it can be anything. And it's not. But they don't say that. They don't tell you what it is that this game is trying to be. And so it can be a little bit confusing for some people because they interact with the game and they can maybe end up feeling frustrated because the game feels like it's fighting them. And the reason why the game feels like it's fighting them is because the game is fighting them, right? It is trying to dissuade that behavior. It is trying to curtail what it is that you are trying to accomplish. So yeah. But yeah, I like Shrink Item. I think that's a cool spell. It seems. Balance is a double-edged sword. Yes, I very much agree with that statement. It is. Because balance can sometimes make it feel like your choices matter more, but balance can also sometimes paradoxically make it feel like your choices matter less. Because if the game is balanced, then it's basically telling you there are no better choices. Now, obviously, we're looking at these lists of spells, and we're still trying to suss out what is the clearly best. And while I do think that spells like Fear and Fireball are much better than some of the spells below them, Slow is probably the only spell that truly, and maybe some of our S tier spells, truly what I would say sort of push the boundary line of the balance. And obviously, certain spells like the Fs and the Ds and a good chunk of the Cs functionally, are weak enough that they almost, you almost question if they're balanced incorrectly in the other direction. But all the same, like we talk about all the time about counteract checks. Why is counteract the way it is? I'll tell you why counteract is the way it is. Because they don't want you to dispel what the enemy just did. If the big boss creature lands a spell, if the ghouls get a paralyze, if the ghouls get a paralyze on your party, if the lich gets a paralyze on your party member, if you become feared, the game wants you to deal with that. It doesn't want you to snap your fingers and make it go away. That's not what the game is trying to do. Counteract is designed to be bad against the higher level creatures. Same thing. The game does not want the bosses to be, or the higher level creatures to be feared or paralyzed or poisoned or diseased or slowed. And so it makes it trivially easy for them to counteract those effects, and vice versa. If the party is, encountered by a bunch of lower level creatures, the game doesn't want the party to feel like, oh man, these things are tearing us up. They want to make it trivially easy for you to snap your fingers. So again, there's an element of the game where that's That's the way it's designed, and it's not a flaw. These people aren't stupid. They designed this on purpose. They made it this way because they wanted to enforce a style of play. I've used this description before, but like in Final Fantasy games, when I grew up playing them, there was always a spell called like Demi or something like that, and it didn't actually do damage to the opponent. It would only do it would do 25% of their health, or it would do 50% of their health. Whether they had 1,000 hit points or if they had 10,000 hit points, which is great, but it didn't work against bosses. It just didn't work. Death spell, Rub from Final Fantasy 1, instantly kills a foe. But it doesn't work against the boss. It doesn't work against the powerful creatures. It only works against the trash. If you've played Gloomhaven, you know that there are the normal monsters, there are the sort of elite monsters, and then there's the actual boss monsters. And as you get higher level in Gloomhaven, most classes, or a lot of the damage dealing classes, get some form of power, which is essentially a one use per game session, that says immediately, instantly kill a normal creature. You can't use it against one of the elite creatures. You can't use it against the boss. You can only use it against one of the regular trash creatures. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, I don't need this ability against the regular trash creatures. The regular trash creatures I can just kill easily enough with my damage. The creature that I would want to instantly kill is the one that has a lot of hit points and thus becomes harder for me to kill with my damage. But that's not the way the game is designed. It's designed for that exact situation to not happen, which is why the rules are what they are. Just cast heal in Final Fantasy 2. I love Final Fantasy 2. Well, Final Fantasy 2, the American version, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 4. There has to be a middle ground between snapping your fingers and removing negative conditions and the current counteract rules, but I don't know where it is. There is a middle ground, and Ryder, do you know what it is? Only use monsters, foes, and effects that are basically within like +1 or -1 levels of the party. Self-confessed cynic with another super chat. We need a boss trait, but not legendary resistance. Okay. Again, you with your stupid titles. 4th edition had this. It was called Solo, and it was a better title because boss is a stupid title. Solo is a better title. But I do agree that legendary resistance is horrible. I think legendary resistance is bad. I actually agree, Flame Loud, with Vin. I think monsters need to serve different traits. And I think Pathfinder 2 took the route of making they didn't want different creature types. They wanted you to be able to take a level 15 creature and throw it against a level 12 party and have it function as a boss. And they wanted you to take that same level 15 creature and throw it against a level 18 or 19 party and have it function as a minion. I don't know. The jury's still out on that, but if I had to rate that, in my opinion, if I had to rate that performance as a game mechanic, like I give it like a C-. It works. I just don't know if it's compelling, and I don't know if it leads to what I would consider to be fun play patterns. So, that being said, legendary resistance is horrible. I think that is a horrible, horrible, horrible mechanic. Completely. So, I would agree with you there. Right. A boss doesn't have to just mean higher ACs, and we could get into a whole thing about this. But, to answer, I think Steven, though, we were talking about design goals. And I think Steven here, Adventurer Steven, kind of nailed it. Yeah, I don't know if I want to say it's the most boring parts of our hobby. There's probably some better stuff like this. But they wanted to create a game that was going to deliver an out-of-the-box experience that was consistent with the messaging and the branding. And to that end, they have succeeded. If you bought a six set adventure path, like Strength of Thousands, and by the time you got to level, the 4th adventure, the party was killing everything in round 1. They were passing all their saves on 2s or 3s. They were hitting all the monsters on 1s and 2s and 3s. The boss fights were going down in a round. Nobody had even seen less than half hit points in like 2 or 3 levels. People would say, hey, Paizo, guess what? Your game sucks. It doesn't work. I bought it assuming that we were going to go through this and we were going to tell these epic tales of heroic adventure and the party overcoming these great challenges. But your game has become degenerate and it's kind of boring. And now I have to do a bunch of work to try to make it harder. And I don't want to do that. That's why I paid you to buy this adventure, because I don't have the time, or I don't have the energy, or I don't have the ability, quite frankly, or I just don't care to make a full ass level, 1 to 20 campaign. I paid you to do that for me, and I bought your system so I could run that, and it's not working. And to be clear, if you played Pathfinder 1, that would 100% happen. Like, if people played correctly and played the way that we probably all played, by the time you were like level 10 and you were fighting things in these standard APs, like Rise of the Rune Lords, I wouldn't even, it would be surprising to me if certain creatures could even hit you. Unless your GM was then going and upping the ante and creating even more ridiculous things. But then it's like, well, then why did we try to be as powerful as possible anyways, if you were just going to make things harder? Why, if we're working really hard to be really powerful, and then the GM has to work really hard to make their things even more powerful, why don't we scrap all that noise and just play a system and an adventure that just does all that automatically, and we don't have to do any extra work? And that's what PF2 is. So, yeah. That's my thought on that. Oh goodness. We're opening up a can of worms here, people. All right. So I'm running my first PF2 game in 2 weeks. Everything I've learned from the system seems like fighting things outside of +1 level, -1 level is a bad idea balance wise. I don't know that that's wrong. I think creatures that are creatures that are 2 levels or lower than the party members will really struggle to really accomplish anything. I think that could be a very cool tool, because I think that is very good for making the heroes feel heroic and letting them really just like the fireball that a caster casts against a bunch of level -2 or -3 creatures. Party level -2, party level -3. They're going to be crit failing. They're going to be taking double damage. When you fight a bunch of lower level creatures like that, everyone's going to be critting. They're going to be hitting on their second attacks. They might be hitting on their third attacks. The monk's stunning fist is actually going to be doing things. It'll be really cool. It'll be really fun. But is it challenging? Even if the math says it is, my personal opinion on that is no, it's not. And again, while I think that could be a lot of fun, if you're looking for something that's going to be, engaging and active and stuff like that, I don't know that that's the case. So that's step 1. Step 2, any creature that is power level 2 or higher, but particularly creatures that are party level 3 or higher, they have really high stats, and it's going to be very difficult for the party to hit them. It's going to be very difficult for the spellcasters to affect those monsters, and those monsters are going to absolutely crush your party. And while, again, on paper, it is balanced and seems to work out all right, the net effect can be that, in an entire combat, you might only hit once. If the combat lasts 45 minutes to an hour, you might only hit once as a melee character, or maybe twice. And the game is balanced around that idea. Personally, I have found the fights against things that are plus or minus 1 level to be more interesting, personally. So that's my take. Do I think this limits the options a GM has to diversify combat encounters? Yeah, somewhat it does. I mean, again, the math supports these creatures working this way, but so it works. I'm not trying to say it doesn't work. And your group might find that style of behavior of play very, very fun and very, very engaging. It's not as engaging to me. I agree with what Kevin said about legendary resistance. You guys are saying some good stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. Yeah, sorry if I missed something you say, sorry. But if you're not if you really need to, just say it. Throw a super chat in there. I'll try to get to it. So yeah, minion trade is needed. I don't know. You know, I don't disagree with that. I mean, look, I'm a self-confessed fan of 4th edition D&D, and yeah. So all right, Ryan, he's right. Spells, good. Thank you, Ryan. Good man. All right, so we've got strength item where it is. Let's finish up with these 6 spells that we have here. All right, so the first is, these were all druid primal spells that we forgot to, for some odd reason, we forgot to rate them. So the first is Pillar of Water. It's from Extinction Curse. So we got a spoiler here. It's a 3 action. You know, these summon, well, this is evocation actually. But it's 3 actions, but it's a range of 120 feet, duration 1 minute. So for, we've done 1 spell, Vin. For 120 feet, for 3 actions, hopefully this spell does something great. It creates a big cylinder of water. It is a maximum radius of 15 feet and a maximum height of 60 feet. So 30-foot diameter up to 60 feet tall cylinder. Creatures inside the pillar can swim through the water, or if the spell was cast on solid ground, walk along the bottom, which is difficult terrain. So I feel like this spell does nothing. That would be my take. I also agree with AK that this seems like a very weird pick for evocation. Water elevator. Okay. This spell is a 60-foot water elevator. So fishbowl. What's interesting about that is, even with a DC 10 swim check, you swim pretty slowly. I think you swim like 5 feet for when you check. So maybe, I mean, I guess it is AoE difficult terrain. And I would assume that it's a 30-foot difficult terrain. Yeah, I don't disagree with what Sage was saying. Yeah, I guess there's some crowd control. I don't know. It's a weird spell. Can we all agree that it's a weird spell? You swim 5 feet plus 5 for every 20 feet of movement you have. Okay. Yeah, and then you got to bust out the Underwater combat rules. And you know what's interesting, Sean? In the other spell that puts you in the water globe, there was a whole shtick in there, right? About how look up the underwater combat rules, and if the creature is large, they only half apply. But if they're medium or smaller, look up the underwater combat rules. And it's weird that this doesn't really mention the underwater combat rules. Well, it's in our nature, Kevin, to try to create combat opportunities for this. I have no idea if this spell is good or not. So I'm trying to think of, would I ever take this spell? No, I would never take this spell. I don't think. I don't even know if I don't think it's bad. Like, I don't think it's an F. Somebody says the Bloodlands froze. I'll send him a message. Joey, I sent him a direct message. Hopefully he gets it. How many of these do you need to play Blitzball? That alone should be a reason for me to F this spell, Lance, because I hated Final Fantasy X. Maybe scroll C, 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 C. It's a D. I mean, I think it's a scroll C. Yeah, I agree with that statement as well. C from Sage. All right, I'm in. If Sage says it's C, it's great. All right. Our next spell is Shifting Sand. Well, the area has to be an earthen or sandy surface with a 20-foot burst. So we can already admit that that is very bad, because this is not going to work in a lot of situations. The range is extremely short, 30 feet. The casting time is extremely long. It's 3 actions. And the duration, while is minute, is sustained. So that is like, we are starting off with like 5 strikes against this spell before we, and the 6th strike, of course, it's from Gods and Magic. So we got a Gods and Magic spell, 3 actions, 30 feet, sustained 1. You cause the surface to heave. It becomes difficult terrain, and any tracks in the area are destroyed by the turning ground. No, it's from Gods and Magic, Flame Loud. Creatures standing in the area get a -1 penalty to acrobatics checks, but only to balance and tumble through, and to athletics checks, but only to high jump and long jump. And when you sustain the spell, you can move the churning area 10 feet. If a creature is immobilized, they get carried along with that. This is forced movement. And creatures that enter or begin the turn in the shifting sand have to make a reflex save. If they fail, they're affected normally, which means they get a -1 penalty to their... Oh boy, this spell is horrible. Yeah. Yeah, you can only, well, yeah, you can move anyone if they're immobilized, but this spell only immobilizes them if they crit fail. And then if they're immobilized and then they crit fail again, then they become prone. And by the way, outside of this, all this spell is doing is giving you a -1 penalty to acrobatics checks to balance and tumble through, and -1 acrobatics check, and -1 athletics check to high jump and jump. And you can heighten it, by the way, all the way up to like, power word kill level, and it just increases the penalty to jump to -4. This is a horrible spell. So we get an F. It's very bad. Yeah, but I get that it makes difficult terrain, but like for 3 actions, 30-foot range, sustained, no. Like we have better spells. We have much better spells that do difficult terrain. And with all of those things going off of it, and the restriction that it can only be used against a horizontal surface, it has to be earthen or it has to be sandy. So there's way too much. Hold on a sec. I'm getting requests here. I'm trying to. For the people who are in the Northern Reaches game, I am trying to get a hold of Mr. Smith. But let's see here. I'm sending him a ping. Sorry, everybody. All right, I try to get a hold of Mr. Smith. We'll see what he can do. Sorry, everybody. All right. Yeah, no, they're interrupting the stream. But listen, the patrons are very, very important to me, so they do come first. We're bleeding people left and right. Off of the thing. Okay. Hopefully he gets on that. So, Mr. Brandis, if you're there, they are. Oh, okay. He's on it. All right. Beautiful. Great stuff. All right. Sorry, everybody. DF for the long description. Yes. Oh, Brovleth, the spells are getting better. There could be no doubt about that. There's going to be no doubt about that. All right, let's move on to this last one here that isn't a wall, because then we have 3 walls in a row. That is unseasonable squall. Yep, this is also from Extinction Curse. A lot of water stuff going on in the Extinction Curse, huh? Okay, we got a 60-foot range, 2 action, 20-foot burst, but it only lasts until the start of your next turn. A blast of wind ripples out from the center, extinguishes non-magical fires, disperses fogs and mists, which is pretty nice. I actually think that's great.
Vincent, $3.
Hey,
Join
Vin.
Northern Reaches and you, too, can get live tech support from Derek and Smith.
That is true. Nothing like live tech support. It's good stuff. Appreciate the tip. Thank you, Vin. And that's true. We do care about our patrons. But this is a pretty cool spell. It disperses fog and mist. Doesn't mention about being magical or non-magical. So there's something to be said there. It scatters objects. That's fine. Each medium or smaller creature. Okay, so it doesn't do anything to our large-sized creatures. They have to make a fort save, and if they fail, they're knocked prone, which is cool. And if the creature was flying, it gets a critical fail instead. And on a crit fail, they are pushed 30 feet from the center of the berth, knocked prone, and take 2d6 bludgeoning damage. This is a pretty great anti-flyer spell, not to mention a reasonable AoE knock prone spell. I don't mind this spell. I think I'd probably rather cast Fireball, but it certainly has some interesting things to it. A 20-foot burst is pretty large. It's certainly a large area. 60-foot range is, 120 feet would be better, of course, but 60 feet at least is not 30 feet. So you can't really deal with those flyers that are too far away from you. 2 actions isn't bad, and AoE knock prone on a fort save, and if they're flying, really screw them over. I don't know. That's pretty good. Yeah, Kevin, I kind of put this into the same space as Earthbind. I think you're really going to use this against flyers, and the fact that the spell is called Unseasonable Squall, seems to indicate that it really is for that kind of flying thing. The distinction though between this spell and Earthbind is that, and I think this is the important thing about Earthbind, is while Earthbind only targets one creature, even if the creature makes the fort save, they still fall 120 feet. So in terms of dealing with, if a creature saves versus your unseasonable squall, they're just completely unaffected. But it is an AoE. And it's only medium. That's we're getting a lot of dings here. So I'm going to say I like C in the scroll. All right, there we go. C in a scroll. Oh, no doubt, Ruinsmith, that it is very powerful against flyers, but it's really only going to matter when you're fighting like a group of flyers. And again, if they pass the save, they're completely unaffected. So if they do fail it, they're in for a world of hurt. I mean, that is for sure. And they do not fall to the ground directly. But Ruinsmith, remember that they do get a chance to, help me out with it, people. Catch the fall or something. What's it called? Not grab an edge. It's the thank you, arrest fall. Thank you. No, it's arrest fall. It's this. If you have a flying speed, whenever you would fall, you can make it a reaction and you fall gently. And the DC is flat. It's 15, no matter what level the monster is. So it's basically almost impossible to make a creature take damage from falling. Just FYI. So this is one of those hidden things that's in the game. If you have a fly speed, you have access to this. And because it is a flat DC, I mean, granted, it says it could be higher due to air turbulence or other, circumstances, whatever. It's just like how 8 is always a flat DC 20, but the GM can, up it and down it. Yeah, it is very low, Ruinsmith. And again, why is it this way? Because they didn't want to penalize creatures for being flying and turn them into just, rock plummeting. Rivo, well said, Rivo. That's true. Bad rolling can overpower any problems. All right, so we got 3 walls that we want to deal with here. We've got Wall of Radiance, Wall of Water, and Wall of Wind. Now, we already have Wall of Shadow ranked, and it's ranked at D. So these got a lot to stand up against. So Wall of Radiance is from our Strength of Thousands adventure path. As with most walls, it is 3 actions, and it is only 30 feet. The duration is a minute. You create a Wall of Light that obscures creatures. Remember, obscures usually means concealment. That's a DC 5 flat check in order to strike them. You create a thin wall of light in a straight line, so we don't get to move the line or shape the wall, and it's essentially, just an inch or so thin, right? Very thin. It has to be done in an unbroken space. It cannot pass through any creatures. It cannot pass through any objects. It is vertical, and it is only 10 feet high. If you wish, though, you can make it less than 60 feet or less than 10 feet. Creatures that are next to the wall are dazzled. And remember, we know that dazzled means that every creature has concealment from you, which means DC 5 flat check. And if a creature passes through the wall, they take 2d6 fire damage. This is not great. This is not a great spell. 2d6 damage for a creature passing through the wall is not really much of a deterrent. And they're only dazzled if they're next to the wall. So all they have to do is move away from the wall. Now you can heighten it to 4. And at that point, creatures on the other side now become concealed. They're still visible. They're just concealed. This spell seems pretty underwhelming. I think this spell is going to get a D as well. Not really excited with what I'm seeing here. I agree. Self-confessed cynic. I agree. All right. Wall of Water. And it does take 3 actions. Here we go. Wall of Water. 3 actions, but we get a nice 120 feet range out of this bad boy. Stephen. Love it. Yeah, Wall of Radiance, not great. Keep in mind that's from an AP, so that's pretty limited space, right? They only have so much space in an AP. But they felt that in order to tell the story, right? In order to make the story of the Strength of Thousands come to life, that they needed this spell. It needed to be in the game, because without this spell being in the game, Strength of Thousands it wouldn't sing. Okay. Wall of Water is a conjuration spell, 3 actions, 120 feet, 1 minute. Oh, I've heard good things about Strength of Thousands as well, but I am questioning that they need to put silly, stupid custom spells in there that don't feel like custom spells. It just feels like something nonsensical that they added. Like if you're going to put a custom spell in an AP, it should be something like, you know, Rune Lord Karzug's spell of cataclysmic destruction, right? It should be very specific. At least that's how I feel. Like, yeah, anyways. 120 feet, 3 action, 1 minute. Raising your hand in the air, you call a massive wall of water up into the battlefield. The wall stays upright, and again, we got a 60-foot line, 10 feet, 5 foot thick. We got a super chat from Self-Confessed Cynic. He misses when splat book spells were broken and OP. 25-year-old Derek misses that too. 35 and older Derek, which this Derek is, does not. Brothleth, I mean, that is true, but that's a lot of work just to get an extra bonus 2d6 points of damage, considering you could probably just strike them and do more damage than the 2d6. David is correct. It's the wrong system for that. So 35 plus is technically my age demographic, so that is correct. So yes, 35 plus. Very true. We get some water here. Non-magical fires are put out. It attempts to counteract magical fires in its area. Both of these happen when the spell is cast and whenever a fire enters the wall area. So wall of water, if a fireball would hit the wall of water gets to try to counteract the fireball. That's pretty cool. Kind of neat, right? I don't mind that. Bludgeoning and slashing projectiles cannot even pass through the wall. I don't know how many bludgeoning and slashing projectiles there were. Piercing projectiles, though, have their range increments halved. Ooh. And if a creature wants to traverse through the wall of water, it needs to swim through. Now that is a big deal. And the reason why that's a big deal is for exactly the reason that we talked about today on the Patreon server. You cannot split your movement up between stride actions. So if that wall of water was 10 feet away from me and I had 195 land speed movement, sure, I would just move around the wall. But let's say I couldn't. I'd have to stride 10 feet to the wall and then end that stride. And then I would have to stride again to swim the 5 feet through the wall. And then when I'm on the other side of the wall, I would have to stride again to move. So that is actually pretty reasonable. All right, catapults, slings. All right. How many let me know in the chat if in the entirety of your Pathfinder 2 existence, you have ever used a catapult or a sling. I'm almost tempted to agree with Steven here. I think this wall is pretty cool. I think this is a really tough wall to get through. It is a DC 10 swim check. Or sorry, you just have to swim through it. But if you're not trained in athletics, it could be kind of difficult to swim, even if you're high level. Let's say you're a high level character, rogue with a minimal strength, or a wizard with a minimal strength. What's your swim check? 0 or 1, and the rules of aquatic combat apply to creatures traversing the wall. So you get this flat-footed, you get a -2 penalty to attack while you're in the wall. You can start to drown. I don't know. This spell seems kind of sweet. I like it. I actually really do like this wall spell. It's got a good range too. 120 feet is a good range. I like this spell. I like B. All right, I'm in. I'm in for Wall of Water. I'm happily surprised that it's a good spell. Wall of Water sliding in. Great. Total entropy A. Brovleth, A. Ooh. Jason says A. Okay. We're going to go to the polls here. We got 50 people in here. Wall of Water. Now, I got to admit, I want to like wall spells. In fact, in our last Pathfinder 2 game, I cast Wall of Ice, and it was really sweet. In my opinion, too situational for A. It does a lot. But Self-Confessed Cynic, I think the fact that it gets a free counteract check to any fire spell that enters into its area, is it fire spell or is it fire effect? Let me see this really quick. Any magical fire in its area. So that says to me that even if a red dragon were to breathe fire on you and that cone were to intersect that wall of water would get to make a counteract check. And I do agree that the walls have been disappointing, but I want to like walls. So we're going to go to the poll here. Here it comes, coming in. Is Wall of Water A, or is it, in fact, B? I like these polls because then I can drink my soda. All right, place your votes. I like this spell. I don't know if it's an A. Could be a B. But it's good. It's one of the best walls we've seen. It really is. I like that it can do a bunch of things. Brothleth, it says here it has to be in a straight line and it is 5 feet thick. So you cannot make the wall thicker. This is not Pathfinder 1. Honestly, Steven, I think at level 2 this spell would actually be pretty powerful. I think it would actually be broken at level 2, Steven. Would I like to see a heightened version of this that was maybe longer, higher, and certainly thicker? Yeah, I think that would be cool. Like, I would love to see, a high-level character be able to just rise up a massive 300-foot long, 20, 30-foot thick wall of water. So, like, that would be pretty powerful. All right. We have our poll. Let's see what we got. Ooh, it was pretty close, but it does end at B. So we're going to stick with B. And I'm still really excited about it. And I think you could definitely, Ryan, I was thinking that myself, Ryan. Okay. Our last spell that we need to rate is Wall of Wind. We've got another 3-action spell, 1 minute, 120 feet. So very similar to Wall of Water. The only difference here is, it's the same thing, by the way, 5 foot thick, 60 feet long, but instead of being a mere 10 feet high, this is a 30-foot high curtain of wind. It stands vertically, but, and this is a very cool but, unlike every other wall that we've seen so far, you can shape its path. So you can make this curve and twirl and spin and cut corners and loop around creatures. You can make this variable. In Pathfinder 1, we would have the S after the area, right? Shapeable. And though it does distort the air, so you know that it's there, it doesn't hamper sight. Okay, so no concealment here. Ammunition, straight up, from physical attacks, basically arrows, bolts, basically any of your normal man-sized ammunition, cannot pass through the wall, period. Would that include bullets? I mean, yes, right? All right. Attacks with bigger range weapons, such as javelins, get a -2 penalty, and massive range weapons and spell effects that do not create physical objects pass through the wall with no penalty. So big hurling boulders. The wall is difficult terrain to creatures attempting to move overland through it. Gases cannot pass through it at all. And any creature that tries to fly through the wall using a move action, must attempt a fort save. And if they pass the fort save, they can move through the wall, but it's difficult terrain. If they fail, they not only stop their movement, but any remaining movement from this current move is wasted. And if they fail, they're also knocked back to 10 feet. I don't think this is as good as Wall of Water. But Wall of Water was pretty close to being an A. There's a lot to like about this. I like the shapeability of it. Now, it is more limited, for sure. It's obviously very powerful if you are being attacked by ranged attackers, right? Like, this is a fantastic spell. In fact, there's a classic example from a PF1 campaign. I was playing as a character. I think I was playing a paladin, and we entered into a dungeon, and Aaron Smith, William Brandis, was the GM, and we were playing with our friend George, and we entered into this chamber, and it was like classic Indiana Jones style chamber. There was a room, and in the center of it was a dais, and on top of the dais was a gem or statue or something valuable. And the floor was all of these different leveled cobblestoned blocks, which were very clearly all tons of them were pressure plates, because the entire walls were surrounded with hundreds and hundreds of crude carved holes where you could just imagine arrows and poison darts and stuff shooting out. And we're trying to figure out ways that maybe we can sneak in and get it or trick it or something like that. And my buddy George goes, I'm going to cast. Now, I thought he said, I'm going to cast Wind Ball. And I was like, Wind Ball? What the hell does Wind Ball do? And he goes, no, not Wind Ball, you idiot. George goes, Wind Wall. And I go, what could Wind Wall possibly do here? And he basically says, well, I could basically make a line that goes out to the dais and circles it, heads back, completely surrounds it, and will block anything like an arrow or a dart. And I go, oh, well, shit, that's actually completely perfect. And so we look over to our GM, Mr. William Brandis, and we go, does that work? And he goes, do you cast Wind Wall? And we go, I look at George, and George says, yeah. And he goes, yeah, that works. You get it, no problem. And that was the whole encounter. The entire encounter was beaten by Wind Ball, aka Wind Wall. All right, we're getting a lot of B's, and I have a strong memory of Wind Wall, so I'm going to just put it into B, flat out. No scroll, just B. If Wall of Water is B plus, this is probably a B minus. I agree with what Steven's saying. This spell, because of the way it's set up, actually has some pretty cool combat as war elements to it, and I really like that. Brovleth, yeah, I think that's true, but I think it's also good against ranged attackers. I do think that there is a paucity of ranged attackers in Pathfinder 2, in the adventures, in the APs, in people's home games. I don't think enough creatures used ranged attacks. And a big part of that reason, too, is that because so many of the maps are super duper small. Like, if you had look at the ranges on some of these weapons, like crossbows or longbows. Like, there needs to be more fights where the fight starts and there's a group of ranged attackers with bows and they're good with them, and they're 100 feet from you, or they're 120 feet from you. And you're like, okay, we're going to get shot like for 2 rounds or 3 rounds straight before we even get to melee. And that's assuming that they don't fall back. Too many things. It's like the fight starts with somebody with a bow and they're 20 feet away from you. And you're like, one action stride, and then you're just hacking them to pieces. So I think Wall of Wind has enough versatility that I don't think you would mind having it prepared. So anyways, here's Wind Wall. Yeah, I think it has a lot of fun. I think it has a lot of fun potential as an area control spell, as sort of a ranged only deterrent. By sort of like, if your left flank is being threatened by archers and you want to engage with the creatures on the right side and kind of ignore the archers, you can just throw up a wind wall, and then boom, there you go. You can't start the combat that far apart. Oh, the melee will cry. That is true. And again, one of the things that I did this in Rise of the Rune Lords. I have every intention of doing this in Quest for the Frozen Flame. Pathfinder characters are quick. They got all those extra actions, right? They have fleets and they have all these movement abilities. I think we need to use them more often. I think larger, and I'll be honest with you, when you're playing on a tabletop, a real tabletop with minis, and there's only so much room for your table space, it could become very tempting to just put everything into one room,
Steven tipped $10. Level 3 complete.
Level 3 complete, Steven. Thank you very much for the tip. Appreciate you. Appreciate the tip. And yeah, that's another level down. So very cool. We are really doing it here, aren't we? We are starting to make some good progress. Isn't there one arcane spell to look at? We did, Flame Loud. It was Shrink Item, and we placed it into Scroll B. The old dilemma. One PC is a slow fighter, and the other one uses an arquebus with an effective range of 600 feet. What to do in those situations? I don't know, 300 feet? See what happens? Again, not to harp on a dead, whatever. But, I think back to Dungeon World, right? There's that one of the moves of a GM is show them the weakness of their class. And I think that's an important thing to do. If you have that character who is just a melee monster and has put every single ounce of their character into being this incredible beast in melee combat, bring in a couple of flying harpies with bows and see what happens. And just show them the weakness of their class. Show them the downside to their class. And I think it'll be, very powerful. And to be clear, Jason, that's a great example of that, right? Let's say that you're a standard Pathfinder 2 character. You've got a 25-foot movement, and you're a fighter, and, you're in your heavy armor, but you have enough strength for it, so your movement speed is reduced down to 20. But you took fleet, or you took something else, and your speed's 25 feet. If you have sudden charge, your character can stride 25 feet, then stride twice more. That's a total of 75 feet. And then still make an attack at that range. It's cool, like, when a character gets to, do that, and then nobody else gets to do that, that's a cool moment for that character. As much as, I was talking about ranging, the move being show them the downside of their class, I think these are also great opportunities to show people what they're good at and what they're useful for. It makes, characters who took reach spell feel a little bit more powerful. It makes some of those 120-foot range spells feel better than some of the 60 and 30-foot spells. It's one of the reasons why we gave Fireball an S tier, is because its range is a whopping 500 feet. And so, yeah, I think it's important that you to use that. And again, when you're playing in person in Chessex with miniatures and maps, and you don't have a lot of room, or you're constrained, it could be problematic. But on VTTs, it's so easy to make a massive thing. You don't even have to change your map. Just use your existing map, cut the grid size in half, and just literally add, double up the grid. And suddenly, those 10-foot wide corridors, they're 20-foot wide corridors now. Does it make any sense? Who cares? We're playing dragons and fireballs and elves. I had a lot more fun with Pathfinder 2 when I started making the fight environments bigger. That's great, Nathan. I like that. That's a cool effect. Well, reach spell is great. Widen spell is pretty meh, so I don't think it really matters, Flame Loud. Yeah, I think the problem, Brovleth, is that a lot of the maps and the APs are just really too small. I love Abomination Vaults, I really do. But my number one complaint with it is the scale of the map is too small. There are rooms, I'm not even kidding you, there are rooms in the Abomination Vaults that is basically like a major fight. And it's the room is 2 squares by 3 squares. So 6 squares total. Like the entire party can't even get into the room to fight the monster that's in that room. And not only that, like fighting in what equates to the men's bathroom at like a mall is not really exciting. That's not where I want to be having my cool, epic awesome fight and moments. If I'm fighting a sludge ooze or something, okay, that's fine. But if this is supposed to be like a cool moment, don't have me fight it in literally a broom closet. I really, if I ran Abomination Vaults again, I don't know how easily it would be to do this, but like I would double the scale for sure. For sure. So that's Arcane level 3. Now, one thing that we've talked about, and I'm going to do now, I was kind of waiting until we finished up our first 3 levels. I asked the patrons if they wanted this to be something exclusive. They said no. They want to share it with the general audience. As I'm going to go, and I'm probably going to make probably a Google spreadsheet of all of our ratings 1 through 3 for all 4 traditions, and have it be hopefully a very usable, indexable, searchable thing that everybody can use. And yes, Vin, we're going to get to the Quest for the Frozen Flames impressions with the flanked by the mammoths. And we're going to make that available. We're going to do that for our first 3 levels. And then we'll probably do that again 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll probably do it again in 7, 8, and 9, as well as maybe a retrospective and go back to some of those spells and really see, do we still feel like these deserve some of their S or A tier rankings or whatever like that, and see if we change anything. Brant, you nailed it. The classic scenario, finding the dragon dungeon, and the room is a 30-foot hovel. When I used to play 4th edition D&D, I sort of had an unofficial rule. We used to play with these, they were sort of plastic tiles that were dry erase. They were called tacked tiles, and they basically had little puzzle pieces on the side that would interlock. And when we played Heroic, which was levels 1 through 10, 4th edition went to 30th level, my goal was that I would put down 4 of these tactiles. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that was roughly an area of about 40 feet by 40 feet. And I would try to make all the fights or encounters occur within that 40 feet by 40 foot area. By the time they went to Paragon tier, which was levels, think of that as the mid-tier levels, I added 2 extra tiles. So now you had encounters that could be, and I'm sorry, those were 30 feet by 30 feet. So that was 60 by 60. Now you could have fights that were like 90 by 60. When we went to Epic, the very end game, I went to a full 9 tiles. So sometimes you had fights that were literally, 120 feet by 60 feet was the size of the room, because they were fighting in the crystal chamber of the elemental ice lord. This was not some broom closet. This was some epic scoped place. And these characters could move 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 120 feet per round easily on the backs of their dragon mounts or because of their boots of silvery teleportation. I wanted the scale to feel appropriate. So I think it's really important. Brothlef, will we do cantrips? I think we didn't officially cover cantrips, but I think in level 1, we did just like a really quick rundown about which ones were good and which ones were kind of like, take them if you want to. I mean, long story short, electric arc over everything, and then, trickle down from that. But yeah, I mean, we could probably do that. Let me answer some of these questions here. Steven, I do agree that AP map size makes range and casters feel weaker. 100%. Like, we know this to be true, that in Pathfinder 2, ranged characters do less damage. They don't have the strength scores to get those bonus damages. The weapon die of their bows or whatever are much, you don't have these D12 ranged weapons. Yet they still take 2 hands. So you're giving up 2 hands, and instead of doing D12s, you're only doing D8s or D6s. Where's the trade-off? Well, the trade-off is supposed to be in that fight where from the beginning of the fight, you're able to start putting arrows into people, and the melee characters are spending actions just moving. And by the time they finally start making attacks, you have already made 2 or 3 or 4 attacks. So I agree with that completely. And Jason, to that end, it is really weird because PF2 is supposed to be all about moving and dynamic fights. They got rid of attack of opportunity, even though some authors and designers and third-party publishers are really trying hard to bring back everything has attack of opportunity. Don't do it. It's supposed to be about dynamic moving. And when you're in a 20-foot by 30-foot, closet, like I get it. Like a 20-foot by 30-foot room in your house is a big fucking room. But we're talking about D&D here. We're talking about Pathfinder, where characters take up a 5x5 square. That's 25 square feet per person. Okay, the room goes really, really fast. I don't want to have a swirling melee in, my home's kitchen. I want it to be in something awesome and epic and huge. Don't think about local businesses. Think about like malls, concert halls, huge factories, ancient museums, or big public works, stadiums, arenas. If you go onto any sort of ancient buildings in the old world, that's the scale that we really should be thinking of, not whatever it is that we're currently dealing with. Hey, what's up? So a couple of interesting questions. What tradition are we going to start out on next week? Well, this time we went down and we started with Divine. So I don't think that we would start with Divine again. And I don't think that we would start with Arcane, because we've done that so much. So I guess the question is, should we start with Primal, or should we start with Occult? Okay, here it comes in. Kevin, start with Elementalist. Yeah, no. That got added later. It doesn't count. Poll's coming up. Make sure you vote. I'm gonna take a sip. A sippy. Yeah, bro, with my opinion on cantrips is, I know that some people feel like they are part of the game. I think they're boring and uninspired. Electric Arc can be really great early on, but then it falls off. Book of the Dead impressions. Did you give reviews now, I think? Yes, we do have a Book of the Dead review pending. It is our next scheduled recording. As I mentioned before, Mr. Aaron Smith is moving. And currently, Bob is taking care of his sick wife. Nothing serious. She's just sick. And so we weren't able to get together this weekend to do that review. And I messed it up by going on vacation this week, so we couldn't do the review earlier. My bad. But that being said, we are allowed to do our reviews. And because you guys are here, and so many of you are patrons and supporters and friends of the show, I will let you know that overall, my impression of Book of the Dead is very positive. It is exactly the type of book that I would like to see more of. And it has some really great effects. It has some really great concepts. It has some really great ideas. They may not be for you. They may not even be for me. I would never, ever, 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 ever play an undead archetype. Okay, that maybe not ever. Like if we were playing like, hey, we're the undead party, but even then that really wouldn't interest me. Everybody knows my brand of heroism doesn't really apply to that. But that doesn't mean I don't think that those ideas are great and awesome, and I think they add a lot to the game, and they're doing things with the game mechanics and the system that I think is really, really interesting. So, yeah, I don't want to speak for other people, but I know that I liked it. All right, our poll results are. Well, looks like we've got a primal victory. So we are going to start our level 4 spells with Primal, which is pretty cool. Primal has been continually surprising me as we've gone through it, and it would be pretty cool. If we went Occult, Primal, Arcane, Divine, it would have like one spell. We'll do Primal first, and maybe we'll do like Primal, Arcane, Divine, Occult. We'll really mess it up. We'll make it crazy here. We're going to review Book of the Dead, and it's coming out. We're also going to review the Dragon Ancestries book from Roll for Combat. They sent us a copy over for that, which is really great. I have to edit, FYI. I've got it on my computer, but we did a product review of Beetle and Grimm's massive, pricey but massive Absalom release. Beetle and Grim does really high-end, like, secondary market products for Dungeons and Dragons, and they're getting involved with Pathfinder now, and they sent us over a copy of their Absalom tome. Massive thing, weighed, I don't even know how much, 20 pounds. It was a brick. And so we're really excited. We got a chance to open that up, crack through the goodies, and actually have some product footage here on this memory card. And we had a lot of fun with that, and we did a cool review of that. So that's coming very shortly as well. So now that I'm back, I got a lot of work to do to catch up on. So yeah, very, very cool there. Brant, I mean, I'm a big believer that flavor text and rules text should be separate. I like Magic the Gathering, and I like it to be separate for that reason. So it's really, really great. So I think what Mark did with the Dragon Ancestries is pretty great. It's pretty cool. A lot of the style choices, I don't know that I personally agree with them. But you know, I try to approach it from the perspective of what is is this a good mechanic, and is this going to, you know, add something unique and different and interesting to the game. And you know, no one can deny that, you know, dragons are cool. All right. Quest for the Frozen Flame. So let's talk about the elephant, or is it the mammoth in the room? I don't like adventure paths. Right? I talk about it all the time. So why are we doing an adventure path? Here's why. Because Rise of the Rune Lords was started deliberately to be something easy and accessible for us to build an audience. It was something that people who had known the game, most people knew Rise of the Rune Lords. And so there was a way for them to sort of access our channel, and we were brand new. And I wanted people to kind of come in and join, and I wanted them to see basically Rise of the Rune Lords as they knew it, but through the lens of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and with this new group of players who had put together, many of whom were not part of my usual game group. I did not play with Bob. We played Magic the Gathering, but he had never played role-playing games. I had never played role-playing games with Bob before we started, basically, Knights of Last Call. We did a couple sessions of 5th edition D&D since he wanted to try it out. And similarly with Nick and with Rory originally, and Bob's brother Danny. Tim I've been playing with for many, 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 many years, and Matt, well, not as consistently as Tim, I've also been playing with for a long time. But Tim I've been playing with for many, 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 hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sessions. And Matt certainly many as well. So that was a good opportunity for us to get involved with that. And it was a good opportunity for me to really dig into the system. Now, Quest for the Frozen Flame. Why don't I like APs? I don't like APs because I don't like railroads. I don't like linear actions. That doesn't mean I don't like fun stories. It doesn't mean I don't like cool situations. It doesn't mean I don't like cool plots. I like those things. And when they end up, you know, when we look back on the adventure that we've done and we say, wow, that was a really cool story, that's really awesome for me. But I don't have a lot of skin in the game on Quest for the Frozen Flame. Okay, what I mean is, I don't care if we go way off the rails with it. I am not trying to flex on you. I'm a very skilled GM who has a lot of experience improvising and coming up with things on the fly, which I guess is improvising, modifying the game, taking the game in different directions. Now, we want to play Pathfinder 2 more or less rules as written. There's a couple of changes that we're going to make, but nothing like what we had for Rise of the Rune Lords. Why do we want to do this? Well, part of the purpose of this channel is to showcase the very best that Pathfinder 2 can offer. And I've said this before, Pathfinder 2 does what it does very well. In fact, I would say that what it does do, it does the best. But that doesn't mean it does everything the best, and that definitely doesn't mean it doesn't do everything. It doesn't. I am not one of those people who is going to try to turn Pathfinder 2 into some epic storytelling, dramatic personality game, because I have literally dozens of games on this shelf that are incredibly better suited for doing that style of play. Some of them we might end up playing on this channel thanks to the support of the patrons and our recent Patreon poll when we asked them, hey, patrons, you pay for this channel. What do you want to see? And they let us know. What that means, though, is I have the ability to read, and also, this is only a 10-level campaign. There aren't as many moving parts as with a big 20th level campaign. That's like an aircraft carrier. And once that starts getting off course, it can be a mess. And by the time you go a little bit further down the line, it's almost like that adventure path is useless to you because you're so far off of the beaten path. With Quest for the Frozen Flame only being 3 adventures long, only 10 levels, and it's all released, and I have it all, I have the ability to look at everything that's happening. And instead of looking at it as a storyline, which I'm not, and instead of looking at it as a plot line, which I'm not, I am looking at these as these are our factions. These are our motivated elements. These are the major players in the game. And they, like from Dungeon World, if you're familiar with the game, basically are treated like fronts. And they have a certain list of things that they want to accomplish, and they have a certain list of things that they're going to do in order to accomplish those goals. This is where the party comes in. If you've been watching my Night School series, you know that I feel that it is very important that any sort of adventure be a power play or a power struggle between different competing powerful elements. And one of those elements should be the PCs. So my intention is to run Quest for the Frozen Flame basically off the rails. I am going to treat all of the information in the adventure path as a sort of, this is where we are when the game begins. But I am in no way, shape, or form going to coerce or force or change the direction of the game in order to fit with some pre-prescribed ending. So, Jason, peace, take care, my friend. Hello, Elgis. So what that means, now, why do I feel comfortable doing this? Well, I think that they've designed an adventure path that doesn't feel as formulaic as some of the other adventure paths. It feels a lot like Abomination Vaults, another game that I was happy to run. There is an element of exploration where the group gets to make decisions on behalf of their tribe, their following, and it's not necessarily so cut and dry. The party has a lot of freedom about whether they want to go east or west or fight this thing or go fight this thing and deal with those things. And those are all the things that really interest me, because what I want to do as a GM is say, I know that the adventure path assumes that they're going to go to, Red Rock Cave, and they're going to do this thing, and then they're going to beat that thing, and then they're going to get this thing, and then they're going to go that thing. Yeah, we don't care about that. What I care about is what did happen. And if the group doesn't go that way, or the group doesn't lose, or the group doesn't get the special MacGuffin, okay, that's fine. The adventure path doesn't have to end. It just means that things get crazy. Now, what does that really mean? Yeah, it means that things might not end well. It means that things could go south real quick. It means that the party could find themselves up, maybe fighting for Pyrrhic victory, or just quite frankly, failing utterly. Because, all gas, no brakes, baby. That's how we're going to roll. We're going to put some faith and trust in the Pathfinder 2 system, and we're going to let the encounters play out as they want to. If the party makes smart decisions, then I am quite fine with rewarding them with easy fights and, lots of rewards. If the party makes horrible decisions and they go in and do something stupid, then yeah, maybe that's a severe fight or an extreme fight, not because I want it to be that way, because I want it to be exciting, but just because that's what's there, and that's how that should play out. So that is something I feel comfortable with doing because of the way that they have designed this adventure path, and the way that they've presented it. And the fact that it's only 3 adventures means I can sort of look at the grand scheme of things about the way that Paizo envisioned it working out, and sort of say, okay, that's one possible outcome. But that's probably not the outcome we're going to get. And I think that'll be interesting because if you're familiar with the AP, you'll see, I'm sure, a lot of familiar story beats, but you'll also see something very completely different. I'll also say there are, everyone here, I assume, knows of my love for Legend of the Five Rings. And I think it's a tremendously cool mechanical system, and it does a lot of things really fun. But one of the reasons I'm also into it is because I think it does a fantastic job of portraying this fictional fantasy, medieval sort of Japan influence with some Korean and Mongolian and Chinese influence, but mostly Japanese influence elements of what was real historical, concepts, and applying it to this sort of fictional fantasy setting. And the mechanics do a great job of exploiting that. There is something in this AP that I want to explore. For those unfamiliar, what's the AP's core premise? Non-spoiler, apart from mammoths. Sure. And this is information that's in the player's guide. So the realm of the Mammoth Lords, this kind of gets into what I was saying. So, self-confessed cynic didn't just completely interrupt me rudely. I love you, Vin. The reason why I chose this ultimately is because, like Legend of the Five Rings, this, we all know Golarion is just a hodgepodge of real life cultures, right? With a twist, right? There's those famous maps that you see, all over the place where it's like literally China, literally monsters and robots, literally Egypt, literally, like those maps that make fun of Golarion. So outside of that, this area where this adventure class takes place is called the realm of the Mammoth Lords. And this is, for all intents and purposes, a primitive people. It doesn't mean that they are stupid, but they are primitive. They live nomadic hunter-gatherer lives in a fairly cold and unforgiving environment. And they are essentially dependent upon the tracking and managing of these massive, gigantic herds of mammoth who roam the land in sort of a circular migratory route. It's very similar to the first peoples of the American continent who, traveled and tracked with the buffalo in a sort of circular pattern. So if you kind of think like First Nations, Indians is what the, sort of not politically correct term is. American Indians or American natives, First Nations people, that sort of hunter-gatherer lifestyle mixed with, honestly, if you ask me, basically north of the wall from Game of Thrones. In fact, a lot of the elements of the realms of the Mammoth Lords. Now remember, the first Game of Thrones novel was released in the 90s, long before Pathfinder was ever a thing. In the area north of the wall in Game of Thrones, you have three things. You have a primitive people who eke out a harsh life and existence in an otherwise sort of unforsaken land. 2, they have big mega fauna. They have mammoths, which, sometimes they utilize for labor or for war. And 3, there are giants, which are considered to be kind of mythological, but sometimes can become members of these human tribes. Guess what? All 3 of those things, including the part about sometimes the giants are enemies, but sometimes they become part of the human tribe, are all 100% exactly how the realm of Mammoth Lords are. So, now, unlike Game of Thrones, the Golarion version is a little bit more PG, maybe even G. I would say the Golarion version is PG. The Quest for the Frozen Flame version is G. We are going to push it to PG-13. Maybe some elements of R. And what I mean by that is, and I'll give you a great example of this. These are superstitious people who don't trust outsiders and don't trust things like certain elements of magic. And Pathfinder 2, trying to appeal to everybody. They want everybody to feel like they could play their character in this adventure path. The player's guide basically neuters that. And it basically says, oh, these people are really accepting and they'll let you do anything. And you could be a gunslinger. I am going to lean into some what makes this realm interesting. I don't want this adventure path. I don't want this realm to feel like anything else. I want it to feel like this realm, just like Legend of the Five Rings feels like this fantasy Japan, and there's those cultural elements. I don't want to ignore those things or sweep them on the run. I want to embrace them. So, the adventure. There is a realm of the Mammoth Lords, and these tribes join together, and they form these groups called Gathering. And there is one gathering called the Broken Tusk, And they are a very small gathering, a very weak gathering. And the party members start off the campaign as members of this gathering, this sort of collection of tribes. And as the adventure progresses, there is sort of a holy artifact, the primordial flame, that was once sacred and important to these people. It was lost, long ago. And now the fact that it has been lost has kind of come full circle. And because of the nature of the group, these aren't your murder hobo adventurers. It's kind of a cool feature. Because these people are members of this gathering, the motivations for these characters is sort of built in. These are their people. They aren't in this for gold or for treasure, for
I am strong. Strong. Strong.
Right, that's not what is their primary driving. Now, that might be something that they are interested in, but in some fundamental, and that might make their characters more interesting, by the way, but fundamentally, these are their people, and this is their tribe's quest for survival and a chance to sort of maybe renew the promise of their people and their lifestyle, and it all centers around the so-called quest for the frozen flame, and to see if the party can discover what has happened to sort of the light or the flame of the world, and see if they can't save it or rekindle it in that manner. And so that's kind of the basic gist of it. But one of the things that I want to lean into, that I'm interested in exploring through play, is this culture. We're used to D&D characters being these weird amalgamations of anime and medieval European tropes, right? And that isn't what these people are. Steel, iron are very rare. Even bronze is something that would be considered super rare. You still need a forge to smelt. These people don't have forges. They have weapons of bone and stone and wood. If they do have an edged weapon, it is a very, priceless gift given, and traded for perhaps a long time ago. They don't wear full metal armor. They don't have the capability to make it. They don't have the capability to maintain it. They don't have the sort of, collection of organized religion like you would have in a more, normal medieval sort of Galarian society. They don't have the acceptance of magic that others have. So this is, for me, really interesting. Now, see, there's a problem is there are a lot of people who see a situation like this Realm of the Mammoth Lords, and they all go, because this is what everybody does, they go, oh man, I can't wait to be the cool, unique snowflake that goes in there, because there are all these primitive people, but I'm the guy who comes in there with full plate and double long swords, or I'm the guy who comes in there with guns. I'm the guy that comes in there with, I'm an inventor, right? And it's so cool because I'm this super cool. No, quite frankly, no. That's just not the way it is. The way that you explore a culture isn't by going and making 4 or 5 PCs that are completely nothing like that culture. When everybody's special, nobody is. So, I think that is really important. The other element to this as well. So, okay, number one, I'm restricting my ancestry to the group. Unless there is an extremely compelling reason for you not to be, you are going to be a human, and not only that, you are going to be a Kelid. Not that that really matters in Pathfinder 2, but that is your, sort of ethnicity within the human ancestry. There may be, some other ancestries that are more acceptable than others. Dwarves, for example, are known to live in these areas. Maybe half-elves, but there's certainly not going to be anything crazy and weird in these people. These are a human-based society. 2, classes are also going to be restricted. As I mentioned before, these people have certain superstitions, and they have certain technological restrictions that would make certain classes a very, very, very strange and unique thing that would not be there. 3, if someone is of a strange ancestry or is of a strange class, then that is going to literally be, one character. At the very most, if the compelling reason could be made, 2. If you want to be the sort of Tom Cruise from The Last Samurai, or the sort of Kevin Costner from the Dances with Wolves character, who sort of, this outsider from the civilized, decadent South or East or North or West or whatever, who found amongst these people a lifestyle, and then that they will fight to defend and live and die if it needs be. Again, that sort of story. Now, does that smack of certain tropes and white savior complexes? Sure, but they don't have to. Maybe it's an elf. My point is, if someone wanted to be like an elf champion, that's it. Like, there's one. And you're like the elf champion in this entire region. And it's not going to be easy for you. I'm going to make sure that people know that you are not welcome here, and that you are not part of the tribe in the way that a lot of people would view you. Again, I'm shifting this sort of kumbaya. Again, the world as presented in Paizo's book is very rough and tough. But the adventure path definitely makes it a little bit more like kumbaya, and we all get together and we all sing in harmony and songs. It's a little bit hippy dippy. And I don't like that they themselves neuter down their own content just to make it more palatable, so that everybody could be whatever crazy, dumb, stupid combination of ancestries, classes, and free archetypes that they want to be. That's not happening here. And that's the last part, free archetype. These characters in this gathering are basically scouts. That is the role that they have sort of been assigned within the tribal structure. They aren't builders, who help maintain and the yurts and the huts or the tents. They aren't the farmers or the herd tenders, I should say. They aren't the people who do the cooking. They are the people who go out. They are the people who go hunting. They are the people who patrol around the tribe's lands to make sure that they stay safe from danger. If there is a threat, they go and try to engage it before it becomes a threat to the tribe's people. They are sort of scouts. They have sort of a ranger-esque vibe to them. And so if people are a class of a certain type, then I would hope that their free archetype sort of supports their role within the gathering. And when I say I hope, I mean I will make sure that it is. You're saying I can't be a Leshy summoned by the tribe's old shaman who passed away and now I'm continuing their legacy. Correct. That is correct. Again, no judgment. I get that some people think that that's cool. I do not. And never will. I don't know if you're being serious or not, or if you're joking. I mean, if you're being serious and that's really cool, and that's really cool to you and your friends, and you all want to explore that idea, that's great. That's what role-playing games are for. That's just not interesting to me. Is Derek's version going to have magical items? Honestly, that is, I think, the one issue that is completely undecided. These are not a group of people who are as concerned about treasure and leveling up. And I think APB, automatic bonus progression, where your characters just get, striking and magic art. Now, would these characters still have magical weapons? Absolutely. I mean, in the sense of like, would they find magic and they would be willing to use it? Yes, even within their tribe. Like, these are holy relics passed down from, the time of the gods, and they're still casters and clerics and stuff in the group, and they certainly have rituals to sort of imbue the spirits of a weapon and sort of awaken it. And I'm all for that. I think that's really cool. But like the standard model of like, yeah, let me slap a rune on there. Let me head over to town. I'll sell this for half. I'm going to go buy that rune and that rune. I'll slap it on there. That concept does not work in this, area. Brant, as much as I hate to admit it, because if you've watched my Battle Zoo Bestiary, you'll know that I don't like that system. And I kind of tore it apart. I am forced to agree with you, Brant. But it's possible that ABP could work. It's possible, it might be a better option anyways. Because it'll allow, Pathfinder 2 is pretty strict with the math. And like, if you don't get a striking rune on time, or you don't get an armor potency rune on time, or you don't get an armor resiliency rune on time, you're going to be in trouble. Especially if you go more than like one level without it. And I don't want to pressure the characters and say, you have to be here at a certain point so you can get this item so that you can have it. Automatic bonus progression gets rid of just the basics. It gets rid of your weapon armor bonuses, and I think a couple of item bonuses. And the fact is there aren't shops, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other cool magical effects, right? You get more cool magical items than just your striking runes and your resiliency runes. And to be clear, that is where I think what Brant is talking about could maybe come more of it. So that is something I think I still have to decide. And maybe that's something we'll talk about during session 0. I mean, my players are important. This isn't just my show, right? They're playing in this as well. They're going to be paid to play in it, but they also are my friends, and we want to have fun with this. And I want them to be as interested in the campaign as well, and I want them to have a say in the campaign as well. And I want you all to have a say in the campaign. Casters are already going to be hurt, Total Entropy. They're quite frankly not. Most casters are not going to be super welcome. But if you are a certain type of character, like a druid or something like that, like, depending on what you were talking about in terms of staff, like, is the old staff of the old shaman who, has guided the tribe and consulted the bones, and, gives you his staff, is that something that's more reasonable? Absolutely. Are you going to be able to go shopping at, Ollivander's staves and wands? No. Are you going to be able to go like, oh, I watched Derek's thing. He said that's an S tier 1. Everybody should just pick up a wand of Longstrider. That's great. Everybody should, if you can cast Longstrider, get a wand of Longstrider, level 2, heighten, 8 hours, you'll be good. Like, that's just not going to be an option. That's not how this campaign is going to work. Like, that's what digging into flavor means, Broleth. I do think oracles fit this tone, and I think that they could work. I just don't think that a lot of my players are interested in playing an Oracle because they're considered to be pretty weak. The witches, especially winter witches, are actually viewed very negatively in this land because the realm of the Mammoth Lord is sandwiched between what used to be the world wound of demons, and then to the west is Irison, which is an evil land of winter witches and their thralls who constantly are attacking and raiding the realm of Mammoth Lords. So witches are particularly reviled in this land, for sure. And I'm not sure what a sorcerer yeti is, but I can say that sorcery is still probably a little bit sus, but not as sus as like something like a wizard would be. Ian Ryder. So what kind of casters would be accepted? Well, druids, obviously, number 1. Clerics of certain deities. I know that the people of the realm of the Mammoth Lords really respect Gorum, the Lord of Battle. Think sort of a more, Conan, Crom-esque, strong, survive type place. And this particular gathering, the party starts off with worship Sister Cinder, which is their term for Saren Ray. So there are a few deities, not a lot, but a few deities that have found sort of purchase within their community. I do think oracles, again, would be fine. Especially certain types of oracles, like you mentioned, Ancestry. But I do not believe that any of my players are going to be interested in playing an oracle, just because of mechanical considerations. Rivo, to crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of the women. Now, generally speaking, champions are kind of on a weird X list. I think that champions imply a certain degree of crusaderism to it. I don't know that a champion of Gorum would really be appropriate for this group and this people. That's a weird one that I haven't really considered specifically, but I don't think. Now, that doesn't mean no. I'm just saying, like, that's I don't have a good answer for that either way. Bards is an area where I am really torn, because here's the thing. Champion of Gorum is already a weird combo. I completely agree with what Brolveth is saying here. I think, in fact, there is a type of person in the tribe that are basically called the song speaker, and they record the oral history of the tribe through song and through writing and music. It's awesome. Totally very bard-like. It just feels weird to me that the bards have the occult spellcasting list. And I know that there's some elements of the occult spellcasting list that feels like it would be appropriate, but I almost feel more like if you could drop out not just the weird tentacle, weird stuff of the occult list, but a lot of like the super, super, weird stuff of that, but bring back but bring back some more of like the storytelling and song elements of the bard of the cult list, and then mix it with primal elements. So if you had like a primal casting bard who had certain spell elements from the occult list that make them feel a little bit more like a historian and song speaker, I think that would work really well as a bard. So we would have to change it around a little bit. And yes, the PCs are scout and not the historians. That is true. But remember, we are going to be playing with free archetype, and there is a way for you sort of to be with both. The idea being that your character, these are small tribes, they might fulfill 2 roles. And to that extent, if somebody really wanted to be a bard, I think there's a place for them to do that as a way to see the stories and tell the tales and be there to sort of record history as it happens. I think that is kind of a cool element. Primal caster bard, Scald, alternate class, homebrew confirmed. Yeah, basically something like a Scald. Yeah, exactly. I think that kind of primitive warrior bard. In fact, I think there's a couple of great tie-ins to the existing clan structure if somebody were to be that sort of bard in training or apprentice bard. Rogues could be a bad fit. Skills are skills. They're going to be useful. I mean, if you think of yourself as like a rogue in the like dungeon delving, pickpocketing, opening locks, yeah, that's a bad fit. But if you think of yourself as more of a rogue in like a nimble, sort of trained scout, sort of a roughneck, an outrider, a picket, a scout, a sniper, like that type of approach, like I think you could make a rogue fit. But there's a lot of elements there that I agree aren't going to be as useful. There's going to be some skills that I think even the player's guide produced by Paizo says like you're not going to get a lot of use out of thievery in this campaign. And I'm okay with that. I think that, I missed it. I think Steven said it. I don't know if he's still here. But he said like when you restrict things, you can get better play. And I think saying, hey, you can give everything you want. You're basically, it's
Revo
just...
Grim tipped $5 for Crom.
Crom is strong. When I die, I must go to him and he'll ask me the riddle of steel. And if I do not know the answer, he will laugh at me and cast me out of Valhalla. That is Crom. Strong on his mountain. So, going back to what self-confessed cynic had said earlier. So if the AP raw misses the trick regarding the culture, does it do anything else? Is it worth running? Well, it does well that it's 10 levels. It does well that. I think it also does well. I think the exploration is done in an interesting fashion. And I think that you get to fight a cool, for me personally, a cool variety of monsters that feel more grounded. This feels like a very grounded AP, and I really like that. It's not, it's not like this crazy over the top fantasy. It's more grounded. There's a lot more humanoids, giants, and even like something like a dragon, whilst obviously very fantastic, still feels fairly real. Like it's a big lizard that breathes fire, or breathes ice. It's not like it's an extra dimensional ooze that can teleport between realities, or it's a living creature of flame that, it's still more, it basically, has a heart, has four limbs. It feels more like a real creature. So I really do like that it feels more grounded. And I don't want to shit on it for ignoring the culture. I'm just saying that, I think it, I don't think it digs in as deep as I would like to do. The other thing that's interesting, and they talk about this right from the first adventure, is this idea of the characters kind of rising to prominence within this tribe and becoming leaders and using some of the lieutenants and cohort rules from the GMG and kind of bringing up this concept of them becoming tribal leaders. So there's a little bit of I don't want to call it a political subgame, but there is sort of a cool, almost old school first edition D&D vibe, where in first edition D&D, your character was an adventurer. And then when they got to like level 9 or 10 in the game, in the mechanics of the game, you basically stopped gaining hit points. You really stopped gaining new powers and abilities once you got to level 10. But your character basically at like level 9 or 10, depending on what class you were, if you were a fighter, you got to keep and people were, summoned to serve you, who came from across the land to serve such a noble lord, and you basically became a lord. You became like a prince or a king. You kind of became the leader, and the game kind of shifted in that respect. And there's sort of a vibe there of that, which I really like, which is that these characters are not only demonstrating their worth and saving these people, hopefully, but they're also showing their mettle, that they have what it takes to lead maybe this gathering through the next set of trials and tribulations, and maybe become the next leaders of this group and shape its destiny, maybe to preserve a legacy or to embrace a new destiny. And I think letting the players have that kind of control over an organization, I think is really interesting, and I think it does do that really well. So I do appreciate that. Interesting choices come from restrictions, not sheer number of choices. Yes, I agree with that statement, Stephen. And I do think that is pretty cool. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with it. And I'm actually going to be announcing to the Patreon probably tomorrow who our players are going to be, and sort of some of what our plans are and what we're trying to sort of put together for our play pattern. But there is going to be a session
GM
0.
Scott tipped $22. It's good to have goals. Glad you made it back safely.
Thank you, GM Scott. Thank you. I didn't know what to put for tonight's goal because everybody was so generous before I left for the thing, and so it's the goal for tonight was just tonight's goal. But it was nice to take a break off, but I missed you all, and it's very good to be back. And thank you, GM Scott, for the very, very generous tip, and I always love to see you in here. K Swiss Stack, that'd be kind of cool. That would be kind of neat. Yeah. Again, I don't like to have plans. That's long and short of it. I don't want to have plans. I don't want to have plans. I want to leave my calendar open. I don't like making anything set in stone. Everything is sort of amorphous, but it's also not nonsense. I'm not just making up. It's not a quantum ogre. I'm not just making it up at the last minute. These are all going to be, right, reactions to reactions to reactions to reactions to reactions. The players are going to do something, and I'm going to look at the scenario, and maybe I don't know what it's going to happen. I just roll some dice to find out what, DC 11 flat check, they go this way, or DC 11, if they fail, they go this way, they pass, they go this way. Or more likely, I go and say, hey, I know what these characters, this faction, I know what they want. I know what their goal is. I know what their plan is. Well, the PCs just did X. They just did that. So how would this group of powerful individuals who have certain goals and motivations, how would they respond? How would they react? Well, logically, they would do this. And then, okay, we will implement that. And that's what's going to happen. And this other group will do this, and this other group will do this. And then the PCs will get to see the results of their actions and will change accordingly. Now, it remains to be seen how well the sort of how well the all-terrainness of this adventure path will stand up to the Knights of Last Call. Will they, will they take it off road real quick? And we'll be forced to, to be doing stuff. That being said, with Rise of the Rune Lords, I was having to custom convert everything and build new, creations and whole new NPCs. And I'm not 100%. I don't like just sticking PC abilities onto monsters and calling them good. So it was a lot of work. And, if this adventure path allows me to use some cool pre-written monsters from Paizo, and maybe I could throw in some stuff from Battle Zoo Bestiary and some other home stuff, that's cool for me as well. But I think it'll be interesting. And like anything, we want it to be fun and we want it to be educational. We want people to see how you play Pathfinder. We want you to learn some of the tricks of the trade. You folks here watching this, you're dedicated gamers, but a lot of people just watching are like, oh, hey, I didn't know that's how Pathfinder 2 worked. And it's important to me that as we're playing it, we're also sort of explaining what we're doing. But I also want it to be fun and I want it to be entertaining. And I definitely want to up, the entertainment quality of the game. I'm not trying to be Critical Role, but I think it's okay if we take the game a little bit more seriously, because we're trying to, for me, I want to explore this culture. And that's a big draw for me to run this game. So, all right. Well, I went way over. I didn't think I was going to go till 10:45. So thanks, everybody. It was very nice of you to join me. Sorry that this was thrown together at the last minute. Again, originally I didn't think I was going to be getting back until like 2 hours from now. I thought I was going to land at like midnight. So we were lucky that we even got in this. Stream. So, will Derek wear cosplay? Signs point to no would be my response to that. It's not my go-to thing. Not a big cosplayer. Not a big seamstress. Or tailor, or whatever the term of that is. So, yeah, I think we're going to wrap it there. Thanks, everybody, for joining me for this very long 7-spell review. But we got it done, and we talked about a lot of other things and some of the nature of the game. And, of course, I would be remiss to say, if you like these conversations, you want to be part of them all the time. If you have some opinions that you don't mind getting challenged and ruffled up a bit, I encourage you to check out our Patreon. And, of course, the hallmark of our Patreon is our Discord, where we have incredible conversations. It's a very, very interesting and challenging space to sort of question your beliefs about role-playing games and let other people know what you think about them as well. And of course, we also have a ton of community game options, our Northern Reaches mega game, and you get bonus content that we do for all of our videos that we release to our Patreon. So every video we release has, like 99% of them have a bonus content video that only our patrons get. If you are Knight tier or higher, we have a Squire tier, which is only $3, but that's sort of more of a trial period. Get in there, see if you like it, if you like the Discord. If you want all the goodies, you got to be a Knight tier or higher. We also have a Champion and a Hero tier, which is even nicer, a little more extra perks, but more importantly, you're really helping out and supporting the channel. So, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.
Oh.